Bimbo Bimbo. My name is Mr. Susan. You must choose, and now it is time for you to do the choosing. I am Mr. Teen.
From the very beginning, the governor was allowing COVID-positive patients to be placed in the same nursing home as COVID-negative patients. Many in the legislature disagreed and went to work to try and change the policy. But the governor now has vetoed it.
Governor Whitmer is still standing by her policy of placing COVID-positive patients in nursing homes with people who are COVID negative.
There hasn't been one nursing home that has taken a COVID-19 patient that they didn't think that they were prepared to care for.
Across the state, nursing homes are not prepared with enough PPE.
I'd like to hear what data was relied on to pick nursing homes to bring in COVID patients, to infect those that weren't infected, to kill those loved ones.
Welcome to the debate stream. We'll be back after this really quickly with the drinking rule games, the hashtags, the promo code. But we wanted to start this off because, as it relates to debate, I'm a ham and egger, really. I'm not a pro. But this next gentleman is, we wanted to pregame with him. He is a sitting senator and a favorite of the show. Of course, his podcast is Verdict with Ted Cruz. The Verdict was a Paul Newman film. But he does have a new book about the Supreme Court, One Vote Away, coming out October 6th. Senator Cruz, thank you for being here, sir.
Stephen, great to be with you. One minor adjustment. The book was coming October 6th. We actually released it a week early, so today is its international debut. The book, One Vote Away, all about the Supreme Court, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. It released today, available Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Anywhere you buy books, it's available right now.
Well, I apologize for that. I thought when you said one minor adjustment, you were going to point out that I needed to make an adjustment. So thank you for correcting us.
Right.
So it's available now at Barnes & Noble, where those exist. The only one around here is a cafe that happens to sell magazines.
Still counts.
So Stephen, I got to ask something because the video just came through. Dear God, man, tell me you're wearing pants.
I am. Yeah, it's American flag. These are the butterbean shorts. These are regulation-size boxing shorts. But after sitting down in front of a current senator, I realized there's a reason that they don't do the interview in the shorts. It's largely relegated to the ring exclusively. All right, speaking of the ring, we've got a barn burner tonight, Senator Cruz. What do you expect from the debates between Donald Trump and Joe Biden? Do you think they still might wheel out that old, music class television with the VCR with just a picture of Biden's head on it? I'm not convinced he's showing up.
So I expect Trump to punch Biden in the nose.
Okay.
Probably figuratively and not literally.
50-50 shot.
I expect Biden to scream and run away.
Okay. Now, is this that seems literal, not figurative. I could see Joe Biden actually doing that.
Well, look, he's been in the basement for 6 months. I don't think he's actually seen human interaction. Look, I will say in seriousness, I'm worried that conservatives and the right have convinced ourselves that Joe Biden has full-on dementia.
Right.
And he's clearly slowed down a little bit, but if we were being honest, Joe said stupid stuff when he was in his 20s.
Sure. Yeah.
And we have defined the bar down so low that no matter what Joe Biden does, if he falls on the ground, curls in the fetal position and cries, tomorrow the media will say Biden won.
Right, as opposed to reporting that that's a repeat of his 88 campaign, which you guys can check the tape. No, I think you're right. And here's the thing, too. I'm not so much concerned about the low expectations, though I agree. I am just concerned as to whether President Trump has bought into that and not prepared, because Joe Biden could be in the basement. He could be hitting, racks of beef for all we know. And by the way, I've had relatives with dementia and Alzheimer's, and they can have moments of great clarity where it just is like a light switch switches on, and then all of a sudden the circuit breaks. So, no, I do think that's important.
Except remember, Joe's running in the Democratic primary, so he wouldn't actually be hitting beef. He'd be like beating up on tofu somewhere.
Right. Yes, exactly. I think he'd just be like smacking a spoon into miso soup repeatedly, and that would be enough. It's a soup spoon. I think that's a good point. Let me ask you this: if you were President Trump right now, you're going out tonight and you're handling Joe Biden, what would you do? How would you handle it?
Focus on issues and substance.
Okay.
We win, they lose on issues. Free enterprise works, socialism doesn't. Rule of law, the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, they work. Riots and anarchy and violence don't. Biden doesn't want this to be on the issues. Biden wants it to be a personality contest. Biden wants it, do you like or dislike Donald J. Trump? And I think they think personality contests, they win. I think that's why Biden's hiding in the basement, is he doesn't want to say anything to disrupt whether some voters might be upset at the latest tweet or whatever, what have you. Look, this country is at a moment of crisis. 51 million Americans have lost their job. Donald Trump wants to open up the economy. Joe Biden wants to shut down the economy. That's a debate we need to have.
Right. Do you think that it maybe makes it more difficult almost because, as opposed to, for example, let's say the candidate were Bernie Sanders, a self-avowed socialist, or like an AOC, that Joe Biden, who's been in government for 48 years, kind of stands for nothing. So it's almost like trying to grab an amoeba where he can sort of maintain any position he wants on the issues because he's often been on both sides of them. It almost seems like it's tougher to grab a hold of him.
Well, look, I think that's a challenge, and I don't know how much President Trump is prepared. That's where preparing helps, when you can come back with the substance and facts and record. I think Trump will be quick on counterpunching, but I don't know that he will necessarily have all the facts at his fingertips. And you're right, Biden is going to try to backtrack and claim that he hasn't. All right, here's a classic example. On guns, he's suddenly pretending he's more reasonable on guns rather than a radical.
Right.
Now, never mind you that Biden said he would put Beto O'Rourke in charge of gun policy. And when a reporter said, "Are you saying if Joe Biden were president, you're coming after our guns?" His response was one word: bingo.
Right.
I hope when Joe tonight pretends that's not the case, I hope the president's prepared to come back with Biden's own record.
Right, and the same can be said for fracking. The same can be said for some of the wars.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: having been there, sort of in the ring, as it were, with Donald Trump, and he was kind of an unknown entity, right, coming into the primaries. What surprised you most at your debates with Donald Trump? Like, was there anything that you thought, oh, okay, maybe he has something, some arrow in the quiver here that I wasn't ready for?
Look, Trump is unpredictable. Trump is instinctual. Counterpunching is his greatest strength. If you look at Trump's debate with Hillary Clinton, when he showed up at the debate with a bunch of the alleged victims of Bill Clinton's sexual assaults.
Yeah, and I'm not laughing at sexual assault. I'm just laughing at the move from the future president of the United States.
It was a holy crap moment. Like the press, nobody could speak, and it was right after the Billy Bush tape when Trump was like, it was a rocky time, and his instinct is to go on offense.
Yeah.
I expect to see him go after Biden, Hunter Biden, corruption, and it'll be interesting to see if how he handles that.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is how personal we think it's going to get. But I think that just sort of remains to be seen. And hopefully, if nothing else, I think there's an opening here for Donald Trump to do the job that the media hasn't, because we've been watching CNN nonstop these last couple of weeks, and they haven't covered it since we've been watching. And I know for a fact that ABC hasn't at all. Let's go finally this, because your book is now out, one vote away, about the Supreme Court. That's going to be one of the topics tonight in the debate.
Yep.
What do you expect that conversation to be, and how do you expect the media to misrepresent it? Because this has been one of those issues that it's tough to attribute to incompetence what can be attributed to malice at this point.
Yep. Now, the media are hardcore Democratic partisans. I expect Joe Biden's talking point to be the talking point that Democrats are consistently following, which is to say that if Judge Barrett is confirmed as Justice Barrett, that the court will strike down Obamacare and it'll take away protections for pre-existing conditions. On the merits, that's nonsense because every Republican agrees we're going to protect pre-existing conditions.
Right.
But more interestingly, Stephen, it reveals how defensive Democrats are on the court. The fact that they want to twist it into a health care issue means Joe Biden doesn't want to discuss free speech and the Supreme Court going after our free speech rights. He doesn't want to discuss religious liberty. He doesn't want to discuss the Second Amendment. The book I have that came out today, One Vote Away, each chapter talks about a different constitutional liberty. One on free speech, one on religious liberty, one on the Second Amendment, one on U.S. sovereignty, one on elections and democracy. It goes into Bush versus Gore, which I was part of the legal team that represented George W. Bush in Bush versus Gore. We could easily see a reprise of that this election cycle.
Right.
And what the book does is it tells the really inside war stories of what's going on at the court. What are the behind the scenes of the major landmark cases, many of which I helped litigate. And it's designed, you don't have to be a lawyer to enjoy the book. It's designed for anyone who cares about the Bill of Rights to explain, all right, what's this all about? Why does it matter? Why does it make a difference in my life? It's interesting behind the scenes stories about the justices, about the cases. And what it illustrates is on issue after issue after issue, the court is 5-4, and we are one vote away. We are one vote away from the court taking away our free speech rights, our religious liberty rights, our Second Amendment rights.
Right.
And I hope that the president makes some of that case tonight, because I think it is a powerful and compelling case. And the Democrats are scared about it, which is why they immediately go to Obamacare instead.
Right. No, I think that obviously you can make that case better than the president being a lawyer. You're a lawyer yourself. I will say this as a layman. When I try and research some of the landmark Supreme Court cases, often more definitive and something that most Americans never hear about are the dissenting opinions, right? The ones that lost. And to me, the most concerning is Heller versus D.C. When you look at the dissenting opinions, they were basically saying, hold on a second, it wasn't, okay, 10 round capacity magazines. It was a firearm case for people who don't know. Go back and check it out. The dissenting opinion said that private citizens have no actual constitutional right to own firearms whatsoever. When it comes down to the legal line, how do we make the legal argument? It was either people have the right to own guns or they don't. And that, to me, it was bone-chillingly scary. And I think Americans would do well just to read up on the landmark cases.
Well, Stephen, you're exactly right. Heller is one of the cases I talk about at length because I represented Texas and 30 other states in Heller. I helped litigate Heller. I argued the companion case in the Court of Appeals. And you're right, the four dissenters, so Heller was 5-4. The four dissenters, they weren't arguing that some gun control laws are sometimes okay. Reasonable minds can disagree on that question.
Right.
The dissenters instead argued, and you put it exactly right, that the Second Amendment protects no individual right whatsoever, that no American has any right under the Second Amendment, which means the government could make it illegal, make it a crime for you or I to own a firearm. And the four dissenters said, no constitutional problem, knock yourself out. And by the way, Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden both pledged to appoint Supreme Court nominees who would overturn Heller and in effect, erase the Second Amendment from the Bill of Rights.
Actually, I have to fact check you. They pledged to appoint more Supreme Court justices to overturn Heller versus D.C. Well, we didn't get it yet. Just add a couple. What's a couple more? Let's make it a baker's dozen. Then we can get Beto in there somewhere. I think it's a very important point. I would love to read this book. I don't have it yet. This is one that I desperately want to read, and I know that I sound desperate and sad, but that's just who I am. Senator Cruz.
Well, and Stephen, let me jump in on something. You and I have talked before about how Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire guys, when they do their late night show, they use your cups as ashtrays, which I, for one, am offended with, although I did partake.
Naturally, yeah.
But, you know, I want this actually to be an opportunity for the battle of the right-wing libertarian heavyweights. Mm-hmm. And so I'm doing Ben Shapiro's show this week. I'm doing your show this week. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to keep a record of who moves more books.
Okay.
Whether Louder with Crowder drives folks to go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and buy the book, you can do it right now, one vote away, or whether Shapiro does. And so we'll see. I'm thinking you're going to take out Ben, but he's trying pretty hard, too.
Well, I don't really think it's fair to call me and Ben a battle of heavyweights. I mean, congratulations, Ben is the toughest guy at a 14-year-old slumber party. So I don't want to look like a bully, but I appreciate you a creative way to promote your book with a little extra zing on the show. And I do think he'll probably sell more in the Amazon bookstore physical crowd, and will do pretty well in the digital version. But I love Ben, and his Tumblr is fine if you don't mind asbestos. My final question for you, Senator Cruz, is you have to call it. Not the media will obviously say Biden wins no matter what, but if you have to call it objectively, who do you think comes out the victor tonight?
Trump, because Biden's out of touch. The media will love him, but Biden is at the end of the day appealing to the media elites who already agree with him. And if Trump stays focused on jobs, on safety, on security, on what the American people want, that's a winning message.
I agree with you. That's a good point. He's really sort of campaigning for the media, and the media is not as relevant, legacy media, as they were in previous elections. They're becoming less and less relevant. Hopefully we're becoming more relevant because one vote away is a book to be read. We appreciate it, Senator Cruz. Be well. Thanks for taking the time.
God bless.
We are now here, and by the way, I heard you loudly and clearly.
Yes.
So just from that break, I rushed and switched my shorts.
We got some
I don't know if you can
scissors.
see this, but these were actually sweatpants. We had as backup that I.
That's much better. Yeah, we just grabbed some scissors, took care of it.
These shorts should be lower, but then when I sit,
You're gonna mess it all.
They become like Gerald's cycling shorts.
They do. And we had a lot of people asking you to keep those on. In fact, it's
I
weird.
know.
That's not why we're here.
I didn't know
folks.
that all of the 130,000 people watching wanted to see inside of me.
Oh, jeez.
The stream, by the way, is Crowder Debate Stream. Please use that hashtag. This is, I believe, the most watched conservative stream ever, which I'm very surprised.
That's fantastic.
It's considering how silly it is. And if you use the promo code Crowder Debate Stream, you will get $20 off for the next 24 hours.
next
And of
24
course,
hours.
do consider joining Mug Club at louderwithcrowder.com/Mug Club. That's where you get the $20 off because our streams often get booted. I said often.
Quickly.
It does happen.
I'm starting poorly.
Very poorly.
How are you, Gerald? Where's your fedora?
I'm doing fantastic. Oh, it's right here. I don't even, how do I put this?
My
in?
half-Asian lawyer is here. How are you?
Hello, I'm here to moderate. Here to ump. Here
What
to
are you
ref.
doing? Yeah, you just that's your outfit,
That's
right? You just
like a
you just
Mountie.
decided that you were gonna have a bow tie.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And then we have Audio Wade, Quarter Black Garrett.
Yeah, what's going
That was
on?
a really
I'm
rough,
ready. I'm ready for your.
terrible.
It was a
your
really
bouts.
rough era for black guys
It was,
because they all want to have big hair, but if you were a bald black guy and you have to have mustache and a big hair and a monk's cap, that's pretty rough.
You had
a lot
to
of
try it.
things.
You had to go for it anyway. So.
Now, is this monitor or am I this bright and shiny?
No. It's just
Okay,
that
all right,
monitor.
good.
Monitor.
All right,
Yeah,
so
you're good to go.
we are going to be watching this stream tonight, by the way. We want to be watching with you via CNN. We're watching the Fox News debate via CNN just because, they might have like little fact checks and did you know?
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, nudie pictures of Brian Stelter and Don Lemon in a locker room with Geraldo Rivera.
Again.
So prediction. Oh, that's right. The drinking game rules.
Yeah,
I forgot
Aldo
about this.
in
The
there.
drinking game rules tonight are, bring them up.
Yeah.
Anytime you hear a leading or unfair question to Donald Trump, anytime he drops a thug life moment, anytime China fake news is mentioned. With Joe Biden, anytime he gets a softball question, has a dementia moment, talks tougher from the shoulder, as he says, or if he says, come on, man, and you hear this ding, you take a drink and finish your drink. You have to down it if Donald Trump mentions Hunter Biden.
That's
Really?
gonna happen.
Oh,
Yeah.
good Lord.
You think it's going to happen?
Make sure you
for
have
sure.
water
It's gonna
on
happen.
standby.
I am very,
don't
very
drive.
concerned, and as a legal disclaimer, these rules are dangerous.
Yes.
Yes.
Very.
And by
It's
dangerous, you
leading-
mean fun.
Well, I definitely
because
meant fun.
it's synonym day.
Well, we're not drinking wine. I mean, you can be, but
Well, you are, because I saw you in those locker room pics with lemon. Let's give a quick breakdown here. We just had Ted Cruz, and I want to give you what. Let me go through this first. The best case scenario. What do you think? Best case scenario for Donald Trump. Best case scenario from Joe Biden. What do you expect to see?
All right. So best case for Joe Biden is that he does not. I feel like the bar is so low. He just doesn't stumble through his part of the talk. He just is able to make points, and he's able to move through it without falling down on his face. And I really think that's the bar.
So nobody turn on the microwave.
Yeah. Exactly.
Nobody turn on the microwave.
Yeah.
The plate in his noggin can't handle it.
That's right. I think there's going to be a Joe Biden catchman.
It's
off
one of
stage,
nature's cruelest tricks.
He's going to run out and catch him.
And what do you think, Donald Trump?
So
needs?
Donald Trump, I think, he's got to be a little bit more subtle than he normally is. He can punch at Joe Biden, but if he starts to beat up on him and people start to feel sorry for him, I think that'll be a problem.
That is a challenge when you're fighting someone with special needs. I say this as someone who has great experience fighting people with special needs, which really wasn't fair to me because of some neurological component. They're insanely strong. Well, it goes in order.
Like
it
a
goes
chimpanzee,
old man strength.
Hold on. So now you're the person that needs.
It goes
sympathy?
old man strength, Russian strength, special needs strength.
Poor Steven.
Yeah, there are layers. Hey, there are levels to this game, man. And special needs, there's a reason that they're not allowed in sanctioned.
You got to be aware.
We're about to say there.
So I was going to say I think Gerald is wrong, and that I think that the president should not lift up his foot off the gas when it comes to attacking Biden, because this is one of those moments where you've got to follow through with all of the rhetoric that we've been hearing and everything that we've been seeing from the vice president over this entire last couple of months, is that he's going to easily sail through. That's his own position, and I just don't think it's the case. There's been a lot of fun poked at Joe Biden, and some articles written about how we've lowered the bar so high so that it's going to be jumping. He's going to
lower it so high, you lower it low.
Lowered it so low that he's going to be able to jump over it. This is my third language, so get out of here. But my point being,
you and Gene Simmons, put your fedora on.
Trump has got to go hard. He's got to go hard the whole time.
Yeah.
Also because I think it will be most entertaining for me, which is the point.
So here's what I think is the best case scenario for Donald Trump, okay? I think early on, Joe Biden has the balls to do what he's been doing this whole time on the campaign trail, where he calls Donald Trump's integrity into question. This man isn't fit for office. This man, he denigrates the highest office in the land. He should continue doing, if he continues doing that, he opens up the opportunity for Donald Trump to go personal. So what I'm hoping is he does that on the outset. Donald Trump goes personal, gets rid of all of this on the outset, does the Hunter Biden, Burisma, and then after that, hopefully Wallow steps in and, all right, guys, you boys, and allows them to get to policy where Donald Trump can also destroy Biden.
Right.
As far as what I see best case scenario for Biden, it's pretty tough. He needs to avoid any and all personal attacks, I would say. He should avoid it because that's Donald Trump's specialty. And I think he needs to lay out a positive kind of future for America, which is tough to do when you've suckled at the government teat for 48 years and have nothing to show for it. But I think that's kind of his best path to victory, is to stay out of the mud, and he needs to stay off policy. And if it comes to policy, Joe Biden does have a little bit of a trump card, for lack of a better word, in that he is a moderate. He should play that up. Yeah. This is a debate now. This is something where it's a debate. He needs to play up being a moderate, because Democrats, they have to run as moderates to win elections. Republicans have to run as conservative as they can to win elections. You see Donald Trump, who was a moderate, really kind of, if you look at early on before he became a Republican candidate, then in the primaries and into the general election, he increasingly became more conservative. You saw the opposite with Hillary Clinton, and you see Joe Biden saying that he was, of course, going to ban fracking until he's for fracking. I don't know where he's going to defend himself on TPP, on NAFTA, on the economy. This is a really, really rough debate for Biden. I will say this, too. I think a lot of people are underestimating just how much they might be underestimating Donald Trump. So people are saying, hey, they're setting really low expectations for Biden. I think that's true. Biden just needs to not crap himself, right? Biden needs to make it through without the crinkle in his Depends going
That's what
away.
I'm looking for.
Because it's moist.
That'd be a feat.
Your pants filled out.
But Donald Trump, the same thing with Donald Trump, people are expecting him to be such a bombastic jackass because they've sort of developed their impression of Donald Trump through how they see him conveyed in the media. This is one of those rare instances. Keep in mind, when Donald Trump started doing those press briefings when COVID started, his approval rating went up the moment he started speaking directly to the American people. This, unlike the town halls, should be one of those instances where a lot of people who are undecided or people who aren't just Democrats or just Republicans will hear from Donald Trump himself, and so He just needs to be a little more likable, just likable enough to give them a reason to pull the lever for the guy who doesn't have dementia and crap his pants every time you try and make a Hot Pocket.
It should be an easy choice.
And I definitely think that's a really good point, is that this has got to be the moment where Joe Biden really abandons BLM and Antifa and the other far left if he really wants to win this election, because so many folks are going, no, I'm not a fan, or so many real Americans who may be undecided in this election are saying, I'm not in favor of burning down cities, burning down businesses, and creating this kind of
Is that Lindsay Lohan? Oh, never mind. That's the other Trump. It looked like Lindsay Lohan for a second. No, that's Donald Trump's daughter. Watch your mouth. Well, no, I think you're right. He needs to abandon them like Biden's kids who never call. Call your father. And it can be really short because he won't remember. You just go, you call him, and 30 seconds in, you go, well, Dad, this has been a nice 45 minutes, but I've got to get going. Oh, I also forgot, we have the costume contest. We have a costume contest for everyone out there watching right now. We will be, I wouldn't say reading, but we'll be showing the costume contest winner, and you get a lock of Gerald's hair. Also, of course, do not forget, Michigan, Friday, October 2nd, noon in Lansing, the state capitol building. I'll be right. Hey, Governor Whitmer, we're going to be in your backyard going through all your private stuff. You better come out and pound me.
Also, chat. We're going to be doing some chat.
Some chat after this. We go to the exclusive Mug Club show, where we will be doing chat with people live who are Mug Club, because we don't do super chat on YouTube because they don't pay nothing.
So, real quick question. How does he get the base fired up? Because nobody is excited about voting for Joe Biden. You guys are saying that he has to go more moderate.
Well, that's where I think people have it wrong, because they go, oh, Joe Biden, they're just really voting for him because he's not Trump, right? That's what people... But the truth is, there's no enthusiasm for Biden. If people hated Trump that much, that enthusiasm would translate to the yang of the yin, right? So it would sort of be a mirror image where you would think they'd be enthusiastic for anyone not named Trump, but that's not what we're seeing. There's very little enthusiasm.
There's no enthusiasm for Biden. That's what I'm saying. How does he get there to be enthusiasm? So you said he would have to go more to the center, right? He would have to be a moderate and have to play that
There's
up.
No
that
real
doesn't
way.
fire anybody up.
He can't get enthusiasm. That's the thing. That ship has sailed.
Okay. Yeah.
That ship has sailed with his IQ, with his function. That ship has sailed likely with all of his pants.
The thing.
All of his previous underpants that were pre-Depends, pre-adult diapers. Which, by the way, I don't know if Depends is the only name brand. It's just like, it's kind of like Kleenex. You mean tissue paper.
Sure. Q-tip.
I mean, Joe Biden soils himself. So I don't want it to be lost on you. We're like, what does he mean Depends? There's some other person who wants to sponsor the show. There are many hard-working adult diaper manufacturers in the United States. By the way, thank you. That's probably a part of the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. Okay, that's Donald Trump. Okay, that's his wheelhouse, so you should thank him. But don't get mad at me. You need a better branding play. Depends has been kicking your sorry, undiapered ass for a long enough time. Let's go now. I believe the debate is starting with Chris Wallace.
I wonder what effect that will have.
Oh, no, it's Anderson Cooper talking. One more thing, too. There were demands made for tonight's debate. Obviously, the drug test, or request. I think this is so telling. Donald Trump wanted them both to submit themselves to drug tests. He consented. Biden declined. He wanted them to do ear checks before the debate for electronic devices. He consented. Donald Trump said, I'll do it myself. And Biden declined. And then Biden wanted 2 breaks. For 90 minutes.
And one every 30 minutes.
And a snack.
He needs to sit down.
He wanted a nap snack, some warm milk with honey, which I didn't even know was still a thing, but apparently he finds it soothing. So, again, when you're talking about the energy level, there are legitimate criticisms against Donald Trump. There are legitimate criticisms of Joe Biden. But this idea that Joe Biden has the energy, or that Donald Trump doesn't, that they're both old, it's not even comparable.
Not even the same thing.
It's not even comparable. Donald Trump has more energy than most 20-year-olds. And the fact that he was willing to... I think it's brilliant. He's getting in his head with the drug test, with the device in the ear. I'm still not convinced. I am not convinced that they aren't going to bring out just like one of those Minority Report spiders with a monitor of Biden's face like Mojo. That's what I think they might be doing here. I won't believe it until I see it.
They're going to run an 8 out there and be like, oh, he fell down and broke his hip. We can't do it.
He tested positive for COVID just before the show, and so he doesn't want to get the president sick out of
responsible.
Respect.
They're going to send out the same person who Hillary trotted out for a concession speech.
I mean, look, I called it last time when we did the last stream. I said there's no question in my mind that Trump is going to pull a town hall and pull some evidence out of his pocket, but it's going to be something that drives Joe Biden over the edge.
By the way, it might be a PG-13 rating tonight because people could get mad in their drinking games. And we were talking about the New York Trump tax returns. And we talked about the tax code. And, of course, people who say he hasn't paid taxes. Remember there was a scandal from Rachel Maddow that he only paid $38 million. Oh, hold on, they're starting. Look, Chris Wallace.
There he is.
The years of COVID has not been kind to him.
He didn't get it.
Does he know he's on camera?
I think he's getting the message Joe Biden is done.
Do we have any sound, guy?
There's nothing coming.
There's nothing.
We have no sound? Is that coming from... That's from the stream?
I think they're paused.
Yeah, I just hear him.
Oh, yeah, you can hear him breathe.
Breathing on there.
Well, now I don't hear him. This is them. This isn't us.
This is them.
No, you are the ones who screw up. Wow, think about this. We have more viewers than CNN and a better audio guy.
I'm Chris Wallace of
Give
Fox
that man a
News,
raise
and I
audio.
welcome you to the first of the 2020
I don't give
presidential
raises.
debates
I'm a Republican.
between President Donald J. Trump
You keep all the money for
and former
yourself.
Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both
that's
campaigns
what Joe
have
Biden
agreed to these rules.
Chattering.
For the
Open
record,
discussion.
I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or
He's
the
saying
two
that because there was that
candidates.
story that circulated today,
This debate
which
is
I
being
don't think
conducted
was
under
true,
health and
but it was
safety
funny to entertain it. And we know what happened
protocols
last time with Donna
designed by the
Brazil.
Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed
Did
that
he just say all
candidates
Florida
will
debates?
not shake hands
4
at the beginning
debates.
of tonight's
4
debate.
He's talking about Melania.
I thought his
The
mind was.
audience
I thought his mind was in
promised to
Daytona.
remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
He said no clapping.
He said except for now. He said
I don't
except
care.
for
He said,
now.
that's confusing.
They're already putting Joe at a disadvantage.
Look at Joe Biden. He's doing his fists, his fisticuffs. He's showing you his veiny, liver-spotted knuckles.
Not smart.
Where if he were to try and throw a punch at your head, you would just need to duck your skull, and his knuckles would have.
He came
evaporated.
out. He came out, though. Yeah, he came out. That's good.
Not convinced.
So let's get going.
Check his
Our
ears.
first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's
Doesn't matter
to
what he
consider
says. Is the
a
Constitution
nominee
clear?
to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you
gotta love
tonight,
it.
why are
Yeah,
you
we're
right
green card
in
now.
the argument you make
Thank you.
and your
Okay.
opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell
Keep
you
in mind,
very simply,
29
we won the
times
election.
scenarios happen. A
Elections
president
have
during an election year
consequences.
has
We have
had a
the
vacancy
Senate.
29
We have
times they
the White
nominated
House, and
somebody.
we have a
and 9 out of 10
phenomenal
times it was
nominee,
the exact, shared
respected by
government,
all,
Republican and Senate.
top
it was confirmed. There was one exception, and it ended up
good
being
in every
a
way,
resignation.
good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time. Even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be
He does know.
as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly
That's a
respected
gangsta
by
moment.
all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly
Joe Biden
would
really
say
is
otherwise.
looking
And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they're trying to do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem
Biden,
is they
don't
didn't
do
have
this.
the
It
election.
didn't work for Hillary
so
with the
they
sign
were
and
stopped. And
You know, like-
probably that
like
would happen
Chinese
in reverse
acting, you know
also.
what I'm talking
Definitely would happen in reverse.
I do.
So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American
sounds sick.
people
He does.
have a right to have a say
raspy.
who the Supreme Court nominee is, and that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States.
They did.
They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle
they
of an
did.
election
They voted
already.
for the president, and they voted for the
Election
same
has
party
already
and
started.
added seats in the last 3
Tens of
midterms for
thousands of
Republicans.
people
4 years.
already
That's the
voted.
whole point.
That's the term. I
And
thought
so
it was
the
4
thing that
years.
should happen.
I didn't think
is
it
we
was
should
like
wait.
almost 4 years.
We should
but I thought it
wait
was-
and see what the
can't
outcome of
count
this
that high
election
because
is.
you can only count on
Because
his
that's the
right
only
hand
way
and,
the American
you know,
people get to
the other
express
one's parents were sisters.
their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that.
Yes.
He ran on that, and he has been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable
So what he's
Care
saying
Act,
is that this woman of the
which,
law,
will strip 20
revered by
million
both
people
sides,
from
won't
having
just follow the law.
health insurance now.
Or we want
Keep
her
in
to not
mind, the
follow
Affordable
law.
Care Act, insurance premiums rose 105% in 39 states.
not good.
Deductibles higher than 20% in some brackets.
Now,
And
that
this
doesn't
is,
sound
this
affordable.
far outpaces the average cost. So you can like the Affordable Care Act in theory, but it's well past time to deconstruct it. It hasn't worked. It's hurt everybody, all income brackets. We know it verifiably. Economists will tell you that now. That's not in dispute. It's only an ideological win that he wants to preserve.
More money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets, and that ended when we in fact passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million
You know what I do
people
love?
with pre-existing conditions.
Nothing about this
And
is
they'll be
focused on her
taken away as well.
qualifications
No,
or
not
the
at all.
actual
No.
legality of the
Insurance
procedure.
insurance
It's
is
all
gonna
about
low.
some hypothetical
And so
decision
it's
that
just
might be
not
made down the road, but he's not even
to do
addressing
this
the law
before
itself.
this
He's just saying,
election.
fear,
If he
fear,
wins
fear. You might not
the
get everything you
Yeah,
want
yeah.
from the government.
You might not get to keep your shitty, more expensive health care by 105% that I sat by and nodded while the first black president, enacted into law. And I said, put my name on there.
Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president. During that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any.
Okay, so we
One
can
of the
watch
big
premiums
debates
go up
we had,
120%.
23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination.
Sorry,
that I won.
220%. That's doubling. I only added 5%.
You know what he said about pre-existing conditions? That's the linchpin of their argument, and Trump has already said, I have a plan for that. We're going to make sure we cover that. And it'll be cheaper and better.
Does it include rape kits like Tara Reid there, Biden? Let's go.
Right now,
And they're going to dominate you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal.
The platform of the Democratic Party? Do you
it's
mean
going to wipe out
AOC and
pre-existing
Bernie
conditions. By the
Sanders
way,
and Kamala Harris, who
the
said in a
20
Kamala
the
Harris
200
administration?
million, the 200,000
She hasn't even let
people
you
that
assume
died
room
on his
temperature
watch.
yet, Joe.
Oh, here we go.
How
He
many of
pivoted
those
to COVID.
have survived?
He said 200 million.
Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act? And
Joe, you've had
pre-existing
308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
the VA became a disaster
And if
under
you
Obama.
were
That is a
here,
drinking
you
moment.
would be
When they
gone.
do the
There
health
would
care
be 2
debate, the
million
VA should be a huge part of it.
Very late on the draw. You didn't want me to ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban.
All right, gentlemen,
Europe,
which
was heavily
Mr. President.
You would have been
Mr.
much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
Much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're
Mr.
not gonna be able to
President, as
shut
the
him up.
moderator.
Yeah, I actually have a timeline
We
here.
are
We
gonna
went through
talk
it last
about COVID
time,
in the next
where
section.
Joe Biden,
But
during
let me
COVID,
finish.
because I have the
Point
timeline I
is
went through
that
last time
the
as to what
president
Donald
also
Trump did. January
supposed
31st,
to-
they announced the Chinese travel restrictions. February 24th, Pelosi was saying you should flock to Chinatown. February 29th, they had a level 4 travel advisory to areas of Italy, South Korea, Europe. And Joe Biden was nowhere to be seen. March 15th.
It's on the ballot in the court.
Then he was gone. He appeared on March 15th,
and then poof.
And then his
the
own
primaries.
advisor, Simone Sanders, went on CNN and said that the CDC said it was safe for 50 or more people to gather. He was gone.
Yeah.
He had nothing to say for months.
We got a lot of time.
Right into the basement.
On health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years,
you
have promised
you've outpaced
to
your premiums by
repeal and replace
9,000%.
Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years.
What's my deductible?
come up
Doesn't
with a
matter as
plan,
long as it's less than
a
200 grand per
comprehensive plan to
quarter.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll give
got
you
rid
an
of the
Takes a
individual
small
mandate.
pharmacy for you to trot out on this stage.
individual
JFK's got
mandate,
nothing on me.
comprehensive
That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst
I
part of
didn't ask
Obamacare.
sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular
Mr. Vice
aspect.
We can't really hear it.
Oh, they froze.
They froze already.
course.
CNN stream froze already.
I think he's got to be careful right
I think he has to be careful.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has to be careful. He needs to not interrupt the
Right, he needs to make sure.
the moderator right now. Again, this is what people are waiting for him to do.
Yeah.
He should just wait for his spot,
Yeah.
pick his spot once he gets a question,
Yeah.
and he can answer. Because Joe Biden is not doing very well. He sounds really sick. Is it just me?
He's got a raspy
Half
voice.
Asian Bill?
It sounds very gravelly. It's lower, it's slower, and it seems as though he's trying to speak in a way that prevents it from cracking. Right, like he's got some, something going on, an upper respiratory type deal.
Right,
but I'm right with you there. I think that the president there is flirting with a little bit of, he's got all this information that he wants to present, but it's not just that you have the information; it's whether or not you can actually present it well. And going after the moderator is not
you
the
didn't
way.
do it. Nobody's done it.
we're
So
back.
cutting
Switch.
off
All right, we need to bring up
CNN.
the audio and make
Things
sure
that
we're
we've
checking
done.
chat to make sure the audio is loud enough. And people do watch along with us because CNN has a pretty faulty digital stream. And of course, I know we're going to be speaking a little bit. We want you to hear the context, but hopefully provide some fact checking.
Had to switch to ABC.
What we're doing, prescription drug prices, we're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because they pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say, this is open discussion.
No,
Let me
but
ask
this is
you about.
big. This
You'll
is
be happy,
big stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out
Joe
that
Biden
you would
has
like
beady
to
little
add
shark
a
eyes.
public
You notice that?
option
It does.
to Obamacare, and
Lifeless
the argument
eyes,
that he makes,
a
and the
doll's
Republicans
eyes.
make, is that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
will.
And when he shits, it
So I ask you the
depends on
question.
those eyes.
It will end.
party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid.
Well, actually,
anyone who
doctors
qualifies
do. It's
for
1 in
Medicare
3
would-
doctors.
Right.
Right. We can bring up 1 in 3
Medicaid
doctors now don't want to take
automatically
Medicare or
in the
Medicaid.
public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie
Number-
Sanders, who's
I
far
did-
left, on the manifesto,
When
we
you-
call it.
when
And that
manifesto-
gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you saying
I'm not
you
going to
didn't
listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm here standing facing
I don't
the
think this is going to play well for Trump.
left
But
2 days
it's
early,
funny.
you would've lost
But I'm
every
getting a
problem.
kick out of it.
It's still funny.
He needs to let him hang himself in his own words. He needs to just shut up
I
and let
got
Joe
very
talk.
lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to make sure.
He has the eyes of a
I
mako
want to
shark.
make sure.
You ordered last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be surprised.
you picked
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wong
Joe.
guy, the wrong night at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders.
So Donald Trump, this is the wrong strategy for
Let
him.
him-
This is not a good strategy for Donald Trump. But just sorry, folks. I know I got to be objective. This is an opportunity that Donald Trump has to reach viewers who didn't tune into the town hall. This isn't going to play well. He needs to give Biden enough room to answer so that he can rebut it.
It's called giving enough rope.
Mr. President,
Socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President.
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through
He had
Obamacare
unemployment
now
at
that he wants to take it away.
3.5% before
He won't
coronavirus in
look
your
in the eye
blue
and say
state
that's what he wants
lockdowns,
to
dummy.
do.
Barack Obama had unemployment over 9% for over a year into the front end of his presidency. Labor force participation, right, actually increased by the most significant amount ever in any single week in 2019. Labor force participation was an all-time low with Barack Obama, where they just thought, well, you know, it's because boomers are getting out of the workforce. We're never going to have the labor force participation rate come back. And then we realized, oh, no, wait, shitty president.
Whoops. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed They shouldn't even call
Actually,
it
I love it. I
Obamacare.
want Joe to
Then I had a
interrupt him
choice
just
to
as
make.
much
Do
because
I
it
let my
levels the
people
playing
run it
field.
really well?
Yeah.
Or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
And I
known
just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's what his
So
people
we
said.
do
No,
want to
no,
get
no.
rid of it.
It's
Chris,
an
we
open-
want to get rid of it.
I understand
and
it, sir, but I have to give
better.
you roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care. Of
course we do.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan.
Well, for a
He
man who doesn't have a plan
And the fact
to
is,
get
this
the
man
unemployment
doesn't
rate
know
to
what
less
he's
than
talking about.
half,
All right,
to get the average wage growth to more than double or triple, depending on the numbers you use, compared to Barack Obama, to get the black unemployment rate to record low, to get the labor force participation rate going gangbusters to record, not recordized within a singular period. For a guy without a plan, I guess in that case, sign me up for a guy without a plan as opposed to a shitty one.
Seems to be working. But in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out.
No,
and
you
vote.
should speak. You have a microphone, asshat, you demented old circus monkey. Whenever I respond, if I actually provide a clear answer to your question, if I actually take a position like a guy who sacked up and dropped a pair, it might be a problem for me. I'm trying to just shift in really unnoticed, kind of like, with a fire drill where people don't know that I haven't gone out single file, I'm no longer with my homeroom class. I just want to sort of wedge myself in there, go unnoticed. If I say whether I support court packing or not, well, Kamala Harris is just going to be really upset, and I don't need any more pegging.
Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They
47 years, you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19.
That
It's an
is
awfully
true.
serious subject,
47. I thought it was 48 years.
He's had a plan
Biden
for
is 47
years.
About it.
He
We have
had the
had
same
more than
bad plan.
7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than
Chris
200,000
Wallace is
people
like, damn it.
have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal.
That's not true.
My question for
Florida's
both of
pretty
you
normal
is,
right now.
based on what you have said.
Yeah, the unemployment rate.
and
That's right.
done
Round
so
2.
far,
Thank
and
you.
what
Your
you
camera's
said
that
you would
way.
do starting in 2021. Why should the American people
You keep
trust
spinning
you
around.
more than
We have
your
the worst
opponent
cameraman.
to
You
deal
look
with this
lovely.
Trying to follow
public
her.
health crisis
The camera
going
work is
forward
shoddy.
in
She's
this
so
country?
fast.
It's not your
The
fault.
question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck.
Good luck.
200,000 dead.
uninterrupted.
As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day.
A huge
are
portion that's going to be
contracting
attributed
COVID.
directly to
In
New
addition
York,
to
New
that,
Jersey, and
about
by the way,
between 750
Michigan.
and
Michigan had the
8,000 people
worst
there dying.
COVID nursing home
Well,
policy.
that
And there's some
number is
information that you may not have, which we'll go over at the state capitol in Lansing on October 2nd, noon. That's going to be a big one. So Michigan is possibly one of the worst states. But if you eliminate the nursing home policies, really you eliminate a huge portion, a majority of the deaths.
So much better.
He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do?
Ban
He's on
travel,
tape
which you
as
call
acknowledging
xenophobic?
He knew
Yeah.
it.
You demented
he
old
said
circus
he didn't
monkey?
tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic.
All
the
right,
American
I got to go through this timeline again
panic.
with the COVID.
He panicked.
Okay, let me make
In
sure I
addition
get
to
this
that,
right, just so
what
I
did he
don't
do?
forget it, because I don't want to be fact-checked.
We were insisting that the Chinese...
You guys can keep it up there until I get through the
China
timeline.
should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then?
As late as March, your buddies, de Blasio and Nancy Pelosi, were telling people to go eat dumplings in Chinatown and go to movie theaters. I have this right here, March 2nd, long after he banned travel from China.
Yeah, and we knew a lot more on March 2nd than we did.
And declared it a national emergency. emergency.
in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools that cost a lot of money. You should get out of your
I don't have
bunker
anything
and get
from
out of the
Biden on
sand
COVID.
trap.
He did
and get
nothing.
in
He was
there.
completely
Go
nothing other than
to
criticize
Oval
Donald Trump.
Office
He did
and
nothing at any
Democrats,
That's not what a leader does, by the way.
fund
You
what
don't just
needs
sit
to
on the
be done now
sidelines and
to
just
save
throw
lives.
hot shots at a guy.
So,
You go, here's
if
what we should have been doing.
listened to you,
Lay out a plan. None of them have.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000. And one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened.
China.
They stopped it from going
China
in,
drink,
but
sorry.
it was China's fault. And by
China
the way,
drink
when you
again.
talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India.
I'm gonna-
They
too
don't
much.
exactly
I'm
give
gonna be
you
a
straight count,
coronavirus
just so
death
you
if he keeps saying
understand.
China.
But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have
unrelated to
closed
your
our country.
COVID.
Wait a minute.
It's his 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the
Gavin
governor.
Newsom, and even back then Cuomo said it would be hard to imagine a president doing more than Donald Trump has in the states with COVID.
In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side
Then he pierced
said
his
that.
nipple.
President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics
Also,
already.
keep in mind they had to
Fewer
replenish the
people are
federal
dying when they
stockpile
get
that was
sick.
depleted by the
Far
Obama
fewer
administration.
people are dying.
Who was in the
We've
vice
done a great
Obama?
job.
They walked in, and the only thing left was a crumb too small for a mouse.
What you say to them, they give you bad
But
press
it was
on
a
It's just
giant
fake
storage
news.
unit, though. You
They
can do
give
a lot
you
with
good
that.
press. They give
Small-
you bad
small
press
crumb, though.
because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job.
Why do I feel
that
like
we
Joe
did.
Biden is
You don't
looking
have
out
it
in the
your
back
blood.
to
You
get
could have
like
never done that
baseball
job.
signs?
I just want to look him in the
Yeah,
eye.
there's
The coach is back there.
I know how to get the job
Well, you didn't
done.
do very well in swine flu. H1N1. You were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
Far
there
less
was no
lethal
recession.
disease,
you made
by
a
the
point. Let him answer.
And there was no one. We didn't shut down the economy. This is his
What?
economy.
What? That was
He shut down.
your party
The reason
did
it
shut down the
is
economy.
because
It is the blue states
folks
that have been
are
shut down. By the way, unemployment in New York
and
is
had
up as
an
high as
impact.
40%. We have that as an overlay. You know, we'll have all of this available on the website afterwards, but all of this can be confirmed. The states that have had the most severe lockdowns have had the worst virus spread. Okay, there is no real there's no correlation between lockdowns working, and I don't want to claim the opposite. If you don't have a lockdown, it works. But certainly, if you look at Texas and Florida, it's a third that of states like New York. It's less than half that of states like Michigan. And then if you look at the unemployment, it's double, triple, quadruple in the blue states. They have higher deaths, they have higher mortality, and they have higher unemployment. When he says we didn't shut down the economy, you tried to shut it down now. I get it with swine flu because swine flu wasn't nearly as deadly, but we can't let that go unchecked. Okay, we got to go back to
Johnson, Pfizer.
beady-eyed asshat.
By the way,
Gentlemen, let me move on to
Reg, I think that was a
questions
lie. Can you
about the
fact check
future
that?
because you both have touched
14,000,
on
that
two of the questions
Pull up
I'm going to
the
ask.
the flu years.
No, I'm pretty sure
Focusing on
swine
the
flu was
future,
somewhere around
President Trump,
14,000.
Was it?
You have
Yeah,
repeatedly,
but it was also
there was
tough
nothing
because
like
they also
8,000
weren't
odds
measuring
for
everyone who had the flu as a swine
Yeah,
flu.
it's not a
death as
direct
well,
comparison.
which is what's happening with COVID.
Head of
Yeah.
the Centers
thought
for
it was
Disease
higher.
Control,
Maybe it was
Dr.
another
Redfield, said it
strain
would
that
be summer before the vaccine would become generally available.
Well, if Reg finds
to
that, you can let us
the
know, but I
public.
think that
You
sounds
said
about
that he was
right.
confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to
Who
Pfizer.
was it? Can we have
I've
Reg
spoken
Dana
to
tell me who was
all
it who
of
said
the
they wouldn't
people that
trust
you
the
have to speak
vaccine
to. We
before
have
the
great
election?
Moderna, Johnson & Johnson.
Was it Biden or was it Newsom?
They can go faster
were a
than
few
that
people
by a
said that,
lot.
right?
Yeah, a couple folks.
Become
There were a
very
couple people who
political
said they
because
wouldn't trust the
the left,
vaccine
or I
solely
don't know
because
if
it would happen before the election. It might have been Kamala Harris, Newsom, or Joe Biden.
Except the
disagree
drug
with
companies
him.
came out and
No,
said
I
we
disagree
will
with
likely
both
have
of them.
something in
And he didn't
October.
say that. He said it
Maybe
could
not
be there, but it
widely
could also
available.
be much sooner.
Well, you're
I had
supposed
him
to
in my
trust Big
office
Pharma when they
We
say
talked
that we
about
should
the
shut
summer
down the
before
economy,
it's
but not
generally
trust them when it
available.
actually
Like I said, it's a
happens to be in their
possibility
wheelhouse
that
in
we'll
developing
have
drugs.
The answer before
When it comes to the
November
economy,
1st.
trust the
It could also
pharmacists.
be
When it comes to
after that.
pharmacology, trust Joe
We're gonna
Biden.
deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This is
delivering
the same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter, this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle.
Reg said it
By the
was
way,
Kamala
maybe you could
Harris.
inject
It was
some
Kamala
bleach in your
Harris.
arm.
Okay.
That would take care of it. This is the same man.
That was said sarcastically.
That was
you
him.
know that.
I
That was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year, but the distribution of that vaccine
No, that's not true.
will not
That is
occur
not true. There are
sometime
several
beginning or
companies that have
middle of
talked about
next year
having a
to get it
vaccine
out.
done by
If we
October, or
get
at
the
least an
vaccine,
answer by
and
October.
pray God
There are
for
several
all.
that have said third phase trial will be done by October, which means they can give an answer to the American public. These people don't want an answer before October.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Listen, if a new
Pfizer
drug comes,
CEO.
Pfizer CEO, if a new drug comes on the market, right, and it's approved, or it's made it through phase 3 trials, where there's basically just some paperwork to be done and red tape to cut through, which, by the way, is what Operation Warp Speed cuts. They make that announcement. Hey, we have a new autoimmune drug that works. Hey, we have a new cancer treatment. That they always keep people updated of that of the clinical trial data.
And the biggest criticism is, well, it's not going to be distributed. Well, of course, that's just the way that it works. We're talking about, is there a path to an exit out of the Corona era? And there is. That's when you get the vaccine solved, and then you still have to go through the hurdles of distribution.
Well, they said they wouldn't
but
take a
that's
vaccine
not
if
the
it came
problem.
out, and now they're saying we don't even want an answer before then.
Yeah, that's true.
So that said, why don't you want the information before election? Oh, I think I know why, Mr. 9% unemployment.
Work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him.
He's
That's not.
Mr.
They're the people.
9%.
And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and
scientists that are in
by
charge.
the way,
They will have the vaccine very soon.
Do you believe for a moment
Yes.
what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening.
Do you
knew
mean
how dangerous
lies
it
like,
would be
oh, don't wear a mask,
and he
you need a
didn't
mask?
Even
Do you mean lies like, well, it's not airborne? Oh, wait, it is airborne. What lies do you mean?
2 million are going to die. That lie.
2 million are going to die. Okay, 2 million aren't going to die. What do you mean? Which lies, Joe?
A lot smarter, a lot
There are
smarter.
lies and there is changing information. And the experts have been wrong about everything. Everything as it relates to COVID. The only person more wrong than the scientific experts who the left loves to tout are Democratic governors. If you want to save the most vulnerable among us, old people and the sick, you would do the exact opposite of what states like Michigan and New York are doing. Because guess what? If we keep this never-ending lockdown in quarantine, it's no safer for 80-year-olds 3, 4, 5 months from now. I was saying this, and I almost got banned on YouTube. We got told, well, you're getting into dangerous territory. I said, why don't we just quarantine sick and old people? And my own doctor, Dr. Choi, Korean. I know you're not a huge fan. You know, you guys have your little
Love
tussle.
Koreans. I
He
love
said,
Koreans.
oh, that's a novel idea. No, it's a sensible one.
How the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is.
What
You've
is
got
it?
to provide these businesses.
If I were running,
the
you say
ability
because
to
he's
have
under the
money
plan,
to be
and then he
able
said
to reopen
because
with
if I
the
were running, is that what he
PPE,
just said?
As well
If
as
we were running
with
it,
the
if I had a
sanitation
plan.
they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to
See,
Nancy
no,
Pelosi and Schumer.
By the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He
Yeah,
won't even
it's
meet with
eating
them.
dim
The
sum in
Republicans
Chinatown.
won't meet
Come
with
on
him. He sits on his golf course.
Sorry, that one was
literally,
late
think about
February.
it.
It was de Blasio in March who said go to theaters. But you know what? I mean, tomato, grandpa's dead.
To shut down this country. And I want to keep it open. And we did a great thing by shutting it down. Wait a minute, Joe. Let me shut you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't.
And in New York, and worst of all in
younger
Michigan,
people
they send
aren't. We
young
learned a
sick
lot.
patients into
But
nursing
he wants to
homes.
shut it down.
Right.
More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons
By the
they
way,
shut down is
Pennsylvania,
because they want to keep it shut down
and
until
I do
after
appreciate
the
because unlike
election.
Michigan, they were actually accurate in their numbers and did a full accounting. 68% of all their deaths were seniors nursing homes related. 68%. In Canada, it was 80%. Michigan, they said, well, it's 34%. Guess what? Lie. October 2nd, Lansing State Capitol. This is going to be I hope you have your barn burning shoes.
I can't wait.
Not flag burning shoes. Not flag burning shoes. Barn burning shoes.
Waiters touching their masks and touching
like
plates.
the Patriot.
Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay. You have to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on.
Prop.
You know,
You did it.
I need
You did it.
Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test. and
Biden's like,
you've
can
had
Harris bring out
social
that
distancing,
water melon and
defensive
Judge
action.
Mallet?
I wear masks when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say,
No,
that's just his face.
Go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open.
How?
We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well,
This is a perfect example of not understanding the economy. If you think sending out, what was it, $1,000? What was the relief? Did it end up being $1,200? $1,200. If you think that supports a business, for example, let's say a business like this with 15 employees, you are out of your tree, sir.
Yeah.
No serious person said the opposite.
Well, look
serious.
at
Bill Gates, huge supporter of the Democratic Party, by the way, said we should lock everything down until there's a vaccine. You won't take the vaccine if it comes out before the election.
I want to ask you both about one last subject because
Masturbate stuff.
your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned.
What's that? What's going on?
President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together.
What are you doing?
Standard.
Outside,
I'm-
yes, agreed.
I'm not wearing a cup.
Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller.
Yeah, go talk with them. Thank you. Yeah.
Weird.
People with masks.
What's strange? Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You goes first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you not worried about it?
as a president, and I'll have 25, 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
for
not
hangars,
worried about
and we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds.
Remember them,
as
Joe?
You see.
I'm sorry, you don't remember
and literally on
anything.
24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
By the way, did you see
Drink, and by the way, I'm going to need another beer here soon.
And
Bring back up
reporter
the drinking
came
game
up
rules
to
for
me,
people who
asked
don't
me a question.
remember
She said,
here.
No. Stand back.
I'm
Put on
still
your
looking
mask.
forward
Put on
to
your mask.
anytime you mention
Have you
Hunter
been
Biden.
tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one
We've had no negative
effect. No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect.
Can't
And
you
we've
hear
had
the
35,
voices?
40,000
All right.
people.
And guess what? Nobody was forced to go to his rallies. Nobody like went out and rounded them up and made them go.
That's another
They
thing. Don't you love
chose.
Governor Whitmer in Michigan, where we'll be October 2nd? She said, well, yeah, his rallies are a violation of my executive order. Who the hell are you?
Right.
You think you get to stop people from exercising their First Amendment right outside
Right.
because of a cough?
Namely, the president.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And it's not like it's an important thing going to hear your leaders speak to you in person, right?
Expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery.
V-ish.
Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape.
Biden couldn't even spell
What
V.
difference does that mean
How many
to
lines?
the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now.
Oh, it's a Dubai fight.
Still, 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people between drugs and alcohol
supports
and
it.
depression.
Let's be really clear about
When you
that.
start shutting it down, you take a
Come
look
on,
at
you
what's
see Joe
happening in
Biden
some of
coming
the
out here
Democrat-run
tonight.
states
This guy
where
looks
they
like
have
he's at
these
death's
tough
door, and he sounds
shutdowns.
like it
And
too.
I'm telling you
Kamala
this
Harris said
because
under a
they will
Harris
open it.
administration, she didn't even correct it. She didn't even have the courtesy of correcting herself. You know, I remember back in the days, you know what? Can Desi Arnaz be resurrected to give that woman a fat lip? Boom, zoom, send her back to at least her place, the VP. She's on the undercard of that ticket. She said that under her administration, it's just, we're at this point where it is unreal. They want to shut down the economy in perpetuity.
Michigan, and a couple of others. You got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce. Look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery.
Thank you very much.
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well.
It's useful.
Another billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal.
Great. That's the mention moment. I'm going to need another beer.
You folks at home. You folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working
class
towns.
You haven't been to Scranton in 40-something years.
This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, it's his yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States.
The average wage growth in the United States under Donald Trump in his 3 years is $5,000. It is more significant than ever in modern American history. That never happened under Barack Obama, and it's even more significant for African Americans. That is something that people need to know. And also, by the way, when we're talking about trade agreements and the economy, Joe Biden supported NAFTA, Joe Biden supported the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and Donald Trump did away with those. And a big part of this that no one ever talks about when they talk about fighting for 15, I was reading up on some of these rules here, is some key points from the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. It requires 75% of the vehicle's parts be made of from one of those countries, and it requires more vehicle parts and labor take place by workers earning more than $16 an hour. This is what he does. This is how he helps support the American worker, and you see record wage growth. It affects you. You have paid less in taxes and seen more wage growth. Joe Biden has to lie about that because he knows that Americans are experiencing it.
Safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency.
Thank you, sir.
Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses.
Don't come back.
Nothing. No. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir.
Has he given any specifics?
No, I've not heard. Wait, hold on. Nope, none.
He should do something.
Excuse me.
Let me give you some specifics. The hashtag is Crowder Debate Stream, and it's Crowder Debate Stream. You get $20 off if you join Mug Club at livedwithcrowder.com/Mug Club. We haven't had our stream banned tonight, so that's
not
good. But I fully anticipate it.
Why you got to jinx us? I've worked too hard today.
I'm sorry.
Recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football.
America.
He is actually. He's not wrong.
I'm very happy to do it.
Yeah, but football has become a commie sport.
Very proud of me, and you know,
Gentlemen, to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President,
I never thought I'd live to see the day where American football is gayer than soccer.
The year you were elected president, and 2017,
it's almost all
your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax. Each of those years.
My hair may be messed up.
I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those
Notice the question, is it true? And I'll come back to this in a second.
Millions of dollars of income tax.
Rachel Maddow, remember she had a big reveal? It was in 2005, Donald Trump only paid $38 million in taxes. It was like, listen, there's some years where you pay tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and there's some years where you have losses of the business. But there's more to it than that. But that's why I said, is it true? That's an important note on that question.
Go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good.
True.
And we have a I built a great
specific question.
I don't know money.
I understand all of that.
I just take it from other people.
No, Mr. President.
Undeniable. He created at least 100,000 jobs in the private sector. Joe Biden, you've only cost American taxpayers
in 2016 and 2017.
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750.
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see
when?
it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you
What did he say?
something.
When what?
When
It
will you
was
get
the
to
tax
see it?
When
code.
did Joe Biden say?
I don't
When?
wanna
In
pay
July?
tax.
In July.
Before
In July,
I came
okay.
here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is.
True.
He passed a tax bill that gave us all these
Anyone here
privileges
trying to
for
pay more in
depreciation
taxes than they
Yeah,
owe?
exactly.
for
Toss a
tax
few $100
credits.
million
We built
into
a
them.
building.
By the way,
You get
same
tax
idea.
credits
Joe
like
Biden
the
has an
hotel
S corp
on
to run
Pennsylvania
Joe
Avenue. You
Biden
get a
stuff
massive-
through in his
which, by
and
the
saves
way,
$500,000 by doing that.
Well, to be
Same
fair,
thing
to
as
be
Donald
fair-
Trump does.
To be fair, much like the presidency, Kamala Harris is the main trustee.
Oh, yeah,
respond?
exactly.
Yeah, I do want to
It's
respond.
reparations.
Look, the tax code that made him
And you.
put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher on the money a school
False.
teacher makes.
Okay, here's
is
what I will say.
because
He has no substance here. I realized this. I woke up today, and I had a song in my head, but I was just going, wait a second. We talked about this, about tax codes and Americans and employers and who understands what, how many people have actually had to pay payroll tax versus, Social Security, income tax versus corporate tax. And I realized we skipped past. This came from the New York Times, who had the Russia collusion story. And they said they had the taxes, and now they said, well, by the way, it didn't confirm anything with Russia. And then I realized, wait a second. Do we have any confirmation? Do we have any legitimate source? Do we have any corroboration that this is true?
At all?
None.
None. So I don't even know why we're addressing it. And I swear to you, might even turn. I woke up, and this is how it came to me. I had a song, and you know what it was?
No.
I woke up, and in my head, I was like, my head popped off the pillow, and I just watched The Wedding Singer. And it all was bullshit. The New York Times a joke. And when I think of you, Biden, I hope you fucking choke.
Oh, wow.
That was in my head all day.
That was.
And then I spent hours going through
the
it. I
music
realized
in your
there's
soul.
no confirmation for the story from the New York Times. None. And it's made it into a presidential debate. That is the definition of fake news.
Exactly, on every news channel. By the way, the news channel that said that Fox News has no journalistic standards whatsoever, they don't confirm their stories before they go to air.
Right.
The CNN, that's the people that have been pushing this harder than anyone else.
Can someone confirm
sources.
to me that he got that from the Montreal Planet Hollywood, from the Beetlejuice wardrobe, that tie on Joe Biden?
It would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because
Joe
it would
Biden,
be about
are you running for president or
buying
Tim
America.
Burton barbershop
We're gonna
quartet?
make the federal government spends $600
plan
billion
for
a
after
year on
running
everything
for
from
president,
ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
That's twice.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%.
Why?
You have 19
He just said he was going to eliminate
91
taxes, and
companies.
then he just talked about raising it 7%.
That's twice he's answered a
Dementia
question he
moments.
didn't ask.
Making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was your tax proposal.
I got it done, and you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy
Got it
boomed.
done.
It's never boomed.
The economy is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach,
Yes.
lower taxes, more
Yes. Better
deregulation,
economy.
correct?
Not lower tax for the American people.
Yes, lower taxes.
Yes, it is.
What was it,
But
Reggie?
Obama's-
The
you're talking about
1,600 or
economy
1,800?
booming.
The average
It
American
turns out
paid
that
less
in
in
Obama's
taxes
final
across all
3
brackets.
years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery
By far.
since economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs.
I don't know
it
if
also
the American
means
people know what they're
401ks.
hearing. It may not play
If
well,
you
but
go-
my God,
if you
this is
ever
really
became
fun.
president with your ideas, you want to terminate
Good.
my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty
Half
of
of the
companies that are
companies-
already here, they'll leave for
hardly
other
any companies
places.
have-
They will
Hear that
leave,
sound?
and you will have
Sound
a
like a
depression
That was
the
weird.
likes
Yeah.
of which you've never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
Vice President.
inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an
I got to say
economic
something
recovery
important
that
here.
created the
Any
jobs
person
you're
who's done
talking about.
investing
We handed
in the
him
last 3 years,
the
invested in
economy.
real estate,
He
invested in
blew it.
stocks,
It wasn't
invested in the economy,
He
has said during the entirety of the Trump presidency, yeah, no doubt the economy came back. That's how the cycle works. But they've been saying every year since Trump was president, well, it's going to go down next year.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely got to be next
Something
quarter.
else that's really telling,
and it's not.
They claim they inherited a bad economy from George Bush, but they never say, right now he hasn't said, we passed on the economy to Trump. He's saying, oh, the economy is terrible. They go to COVID.
Yeah,
so
they
before
skipped to
COVID,
that.
they tried to say, oh, you know what? Actually, he's only doing well because of our economy, because apparently there's a lag of give or take 4 years, give or take a term.
Yeah, exactly.
But now they're pivoting to, see, look, the economy is bad because of COVID.
Yeah.
Well, hold on a second. What happened? Wasn't it your economy? They know that they can claim no credit. I can tell you this, anecdotally, 2 more hires, Bryce and Angela.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Period. As a small business.
And
2
you
more
didn't
hires
fire
because
me,
we can
so that's
project. Yeah, well, you're just not on the payroll.
It was close.
Yeah. You're on
what?
thin ice.
We
though.
turned him to volunteer.
What is that email I get? Is that a lie?
Well, yeah, the numbers that you see in your account,
geez.
it's just me doing a screen share with a fake Bank of
The
America.
problem will work itself out.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little.
A lot.
His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these
Fuck
great trade deals.
you!
He talks about the art of the deal.
Fuck
China's
you,
made
you beady
perfected
little
the art of the
asshole! I'm
steal.
sorry!
We have-
This is the biggest contrast between the two administrations.
Come on.
This guy supported NAFTA. This guy supported TPP. Donald Trump scrapped them. How do you think you have the lowest approval rating of middle-class working American voters? You screwed them! And Donald Trump, the Republican, has rewritten the electoral map. It's not even close. You shipped jobs overseas, and you increased taxes on the business owners who were employing those Americans. The guy to your right, my left, on this screen, I assume, I don't have the spatial awareness of how it's going on with the Constitution written in the background that Joe Biden likely ignored. The fact is, he knows what has been going on. He has lowered taxes on American businesses and forced them to meet prerequisites if they want to have the tax breaks. This is a good thing, too. He really hasn't had to do all that much as far as tariffs. He's just had to say, hey, listen, you are going to be rewarded if you employ more Americans who make $16 an hour or more for American auto manufacturing. You are going to make more if you bring jobs back here to American shores. We're going to encourage it. And by the way, even China all of a sudden was like, maybe we were wrong. I am now considering removing my pecker from your rear.
Oh, wow.
His position has been
48th.
That was from their prime minister.
Well, the 48th year is the charm.
I thought it was distasteful.
Really is. Yeah.
But that's how their prime ministers talk over there.
Well, sometimes you got to say what you got to say.
President,
by everyone,
dictator,
as discredited. Matter of fact,
Shorty.
even the people who testified under oath.
So let me ask you this.
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
People under.
You got $3.5 million from Moscow.
Come on.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd like to
honorably.
know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good job.
Yeah.
With you,
Go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me. This.
Hey, let me just.
Wow!
You just down the bear.
In the mud.
Here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that.
All right.
I mean, his family, we could talk about
I don't
all
want to do
night.
it.
His family's already...
My family
already
lost
wrote
a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
And that's such a...
Mr. President.
Every single one of them.
Biden made his fortune in government. Donald Trump and his family have foregone fortune by working for government. Which, by the way, if they're saying Donald Trump hasn't paid anything in taxes, he sure is shitty at funneling money to his own entities as president of the United States, which was the scandal they said we should believe. Hold on a second. Is it he's such a crappy business person that he's never paid taxes, or he's this cunning, evil genius who's become president so that he can increase the value of his businesses? Because the years you're talking about him not paying taxes, he was president.
Yeah. You got to pick one.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
That is absolutely not true.
You're doing it.
You're going to have...
True.
Gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to me, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
We have... 6 segments.
That was Chris Wallace raising his voice?
We're going to go to the next segment.
Kids must walk all over him.
You each are going to have
I'm surprised there isn't a light-up sneaker footprint on his face.
I like him.
You can say
I like him.
anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer
Oh,
about something else, go ahead.
Joe
But
Biden, please do mention that you oppose desegregation because you didn't want your children to, quote, grow up in a racial jungle. Confirmed by Snopes. Go type in racial jungle Biden and Snopes, and they really didn't want to confirm that shit.
Well, less than less than
plenty.
No, less than you have.
Got to just let him answer.
Please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response
this is going
to the
downhill.
violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln.
I want to hear this answer because that old white shark-eyed albino is a real racist.
To deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years, Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole.
Why'd you draft the 1994 crime bill, Joe?
We've never accomplished it, but we've never walked away from
what'd you do with the 1994 crime bill?
It is true.
Why'd you oppose desegregation, saying that you didn't want your children to, quote, grow up in a racial jungle, confirmed by Snopes, you racist asshole? I'm willing to bet that if we go into a closet, we'll find a stack of white hoods like it's a returning costume like the Captain of the Incredibles.
The Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed.
Just like Pee Wee Herman's suit.
What he thought, he said there were very
Only it's a white hat with a cone on it and two eye slits.
No.
Don't get me started on the flaming crosses.
He did the fine people on both sides argument.
Yeah, he's a reformed
come
racist.
on.
Reformed racist.
Donald Trump condemned neo-Nazis as opposed to you, Joe Biden, who was
Same old
one.
hack, man.
There was a peaceful protest in front of the White House.
No, I don't think Joe Biden's a
What did he
racist.
do?
I think he's an
He came out of his
ignorant
bunker,
asshole.
had the
He's dumb.
military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said
who was a
he
well-known
only-
liberal
all everyone
activist.
I'm pretty confident he's just reading headlines from like
Yeah,
young
he's reading
church
headlines from
with no
Slate.
facts.
That's his research. Yeah, his debate partner, his mock debate partner, was an angry pink mohawked lesbian.
Man who, in fact, you talk about helping
I don't
African
laugh because
Americans.
that's probably true.
1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man,
what you talking
this
about?
man
Reg?
is the
Reg. 1 in 500?
This
Is
man
there a
cares at all.
0.25% mortality rate for black Americans?
I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
don't know.
kind of
You
high.
have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did, and what he did has been disastrous.
If he's talking about,
to the
if he's talking about black Americans in prison, where he put them because of his 1994
Right. Well, and
crime
Kamala Harris
bill,
kept them there.
and Kamala Harris kept them there as
it's
free,
like a tag team.
free indentured servitude labor for the
pretty
state.
much.
Then I guess he has a point.
Super predators.
That's one for you, Biden.
African Americans.
Super predators.
Super predators. And they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir. It's his
Yeah,
domain.
Joe,
So
you
did
said that.
and they call you a super predator. And I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American
Nonviolent drug offenders.
population.
Anyone out there who
community,
thinks that
you've treated the
nonviolent
black
drug offenders shouldn't be locked
community
up,
about
your
as
choice
bad
couldn't
as
be more
anybody in this
clear.
country.
Biden
You
has,
did the
it's been almost his
and that's
raison
why,
d'etre.
If you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time.
That's true.
Because they saw what you did. You
Confirmed.
call them super
are facts.
predators, and you've called them worse than that. Because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals. Total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida,
That's really
I have
gotta sting
Texas,
because they're big
I
union
have
guys.
Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump.
Does
I
that
don't
count
think
as
you have
evidence?
Any law enforcement. You can't even say
Wait,
the word law
is he saying
enforcement.
the sheriff,
because
the
if you
black
say those
lady of
words,
Portland, or was
you're
that
gonna
the,
lose
must
all
be the
your
second
was that
radical
the police
supporters.
commissioner?
Sheriff.
And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following
Absolutely
day
true.
and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and
Whoa,
just
this
about
is bad
the
for
top
Joe when he
40
makes the Jersey
cities
Shore duck face.
are
And he's looking
run
down.
by
He's asleep.
Democrats and in many cases radical left, and they've got you wrapped
Does
around
Joe
their
Biden
finger, Joe,
own lips?
to a point where you don't want to say anything about
They're
law
retracting.
and order. And I'll tell you what, the people
It's
of this
like he
country
had lips, but they were
want
sewn
and
shut
demand
by
law and
Hellraiser.
order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race.
Oh, dimension moment right
After
there.
the grand
His
jury in
scalp
the Breonna
moved.
Taylor
Like he was
case
trying to go through
decided
the
not to
inventory in
charge
his
any of the
brain for
police
something that he couldn't
with
find.
Homicide. You said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally
I'm a
applied
horrible
in
human
America.
being.
Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks
Look, this is what Joe Biden's scalp did.
Yes,
Look.
there's systemic injustice in this country, in
No, there's not.
education,
Oh,
in
no.
the work, and in
wait.
law enforcement.
Accountability?
And the way in which it's enforced. But look,
Really?
the vast majority of
Didn't know we had
police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur...
Oh, I thought bad apples was the worst thing to say.
I thought that was a bad argument. You can't make that argument. You
They
just
have
said
to be
it's
held
systemic. You
accountable.
can't then
And
go
what I'm
say
gonna
there's a
do
few
as
bad
president of the United
apples
States is
and it's
call
systemic. It's one or the other. Pick a lane.
together
Systemic
an entire
is a
group of
bad
people at
tree.
the White House. Well, everything from the civil rights groups,
And people
to the
give
police
them a
officers,
pass
the
on
police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change
No
the way
specifics.
in which we have
We're gonna
more
work this out.
transparency.
We're gonna how?
in when
Now,
these things
whoa,
happen.
whoa.
These cops aren't happy
You're
to
asking
see
me
what happened to George Floyd.
I
These
didn't expect it.
cops aren't
You
happy to see what happened
dog-faced
to
pony boy.
Breonna Taylor.
What? Do some push-ups,
Most don't
huh?
like
I
it.
shit
But we have
myself.
to have a system
Laugh, you
where
stupid
people are held
bastards.
accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence
He's not
is
gonna
never
comment on
appropriate.
the things he
responsible for
says.
violence,
Peaceful
Joe?
protest. When they run through the middle of the town
President Trump-
and burn down your
President Trump,
stores and kill people all
President
over
Trump,
the place,
that
you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful.
protest.
President
No,
Trump,
it's
I'm not
not, but
asking-
you say it is.
President
I did not
Trump, I'd
say
like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue
sorry,
of law and
sorry,
order
sorry.
in a moment. This month, your administration
He didn't comment on the
directed
things he
federal
said.
agencies to
Donald
end
Trump has to always,
racial
so it seems like his
sensitivity
idea. Like, we're going to get to that in a second.
training
Right,
that
we
addresses
will.
white
It's true.
privilege or
Of course. Absolutely.
race theory.
Like, listen, you
Why
guys
did
will each have time to answer the
do
questions.
that, to
Good.
end
That's what I
racial
wanted.
sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
No.
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military,
Talking about the training,
in our
something like that,
schools,
or, race.
all over the place, and you know it,
Critical
and
race
so
theory?
does
What-
everybody
what-
else.
which, by the way,
And
teaches
he
that
would
every
know.
single
What
white
is
person
totally
is racist.
Racial sensitivity training, sir.
If you
Right.
were a certain person, you had
White.
no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Good job.
We have to go back
That's just a
to the
drink
core
because here.
values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were
That is
teaching people
absolutely
to
true.
hate our
You look
country.
at critical race theory and
I'm
black
not gonna
liberation
allow that to
theology. If
happen.
you look at
Vice
what
President
Nobody's doing that.
Barack Obama
He's
subscribed
just-
to with Derek
he's
Bell, if you
racist.
look at these
Here's
beliefs,
the
it
deal.
is.
I know a lot
This
more
is the
about
idea of
it.
implicit
Yeah,
bias.
but
It's
it's-
you are racist if you are
fact
white.
is that
Ergo,
there
the United
is
States is a racist
racial
country.
insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like.
Like you were
what
made
insults
aware
them,
when you
what
opposed
is
desegregation
demeaning to
because you
them.
didn't want your
It's
kids to grow up in
important
a.
people know.
Hold
They
on, make sure I
don't
get this.
want it.
Racial jungle,
Yeah,
according to
yeah.
Snopes.
Yeah.
Joe
It's
Biden.
amazing.
Now, to
It
be
makes a
clear,
big
I don't think he's a
difference. It makes a
racist.
gigantic
He
difference
just
to
plays
the
one on
child
TV.
He just-
is
he does a
able to
really
grow
good
up and have
job
a self-
portraying one.
a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on
what?
people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They
Who's
look down on
looking
people
down-
who don't
who's
have
looking
money. They
down
look
on
on
African
people
Americans?
who are of a different
Joe.
faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way
I've got
we're
to
gonna
say,
bring this
I don't
country
think we've
together
talked about
is
people who
bring
try and avoid
everybody together. There's
issues and
nothing
not
we
get to
cannot
specifics.
do if we do it
I've never
together.
seen it so
We
egregious
can
as tonight
take
with Joe
this
Biden.
on and we can
But this guy
defeat
who looks down on,
racism.
does anyone, is there any that he looks down on Irish Catholics? Is he just reading another headline from HuffPo that says, behind closed doors, Donald Trump mocks Christian voters? He just nominated a Catholic to the Supreme Court, you asshat! You bumbling, demented circus monkey!
Yeah. Last I checked, it wasn't the Republicans throwing shade at her for being a Catholic either.
But
right?
the reason.
No, there was a New York
is
Times
that
who also have a
the
completely
Democrats
uncorroborated,
that run these
unconfirmed story
cities
about Donald Trump's taxes. So.
will talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you
it
in
and a little
favor
bit
of law and order? Go
Yes.
ahead.
What do you say? You what?
Phony?
Law and order. Law and order.
Let him
Law and
Take
order
him behind the bike
justice
racks,
where people
Joe. See
get
what
treated
happens.
fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more in ours.
All right, we're down.
Yeah, it went down much more under Donald Trump until Black Lives Matter COVID.
Yeah.
And you can actually look at that spike entirely due to leftist cities. What is it?
Yeah.
San Francisco saw a 100% increase. Was it in murder, rape, or violent crime? New York saw a several 100% increase in violent crime, murder, rape, arson. So yeah, you know, it's one of those things that it does matter. It does matter because this is where Americans need to understand there's constitutional authority. There are roles of the federal government, and then there are roles of the state government. And the president cannot, he's respected those boundaries by not sending in the National Guard unless by request.
Right.
But if you look at these states and you look at these cities, Portland, New York, Detroit, Seattle, all of these major cities, Chicago, where these protests have gotten increasingly violent, these are under Democratic rule where they refuse to enforce law and order, and you have seen several 100% increase in violent crimes. Similarly, Bill Clinton tried to claim that he was the one who oversaw a reduction in crime, although he kind of had to play both sides of the fence because he tried to push the assault weapons ban, implying that there was increased crime, but violent crime went down under Bill Clinton. It is almost entirely attributable, I think it was 2/3 or at least 1/3, just to Giuliani in New York City.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
But he'll take credit for it.
I was
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles on racism don't work anymore.
Whoa,
Suburbs are by
Oh
and
my
large
God! Is
integrated.
this
There's many
a
people today
BuzzFeed
driving their
boldly
kids to
video?
soccer practice
I
and or
expect
to,
Joe Biden to
black and
unzip
white
himself and be like, it's just me, a random fat
As
bitch.
there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the
This
suburbs and their safety?
this is surprising to me because even though he's trying to not be pinned on policies, Joe Biden, you can see his rhetoric is increasingly social justice.
Absolutely.
That's
Very
why
much
the
so.
Suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and
No, the
order,
suburbs
though,
are in
and
trouble
in
because
the
of
joint
protesters.
recommendation.
Let's be honest, the suburbs aren't in trouble yet because they're well armed.
That's true.
Task Force.
They tried.
You talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
I have no idea.
It means
let me.
I was
I'm not
listening
finished
to
the
a lot of
question.
John
What
Lennon.
is reimagining
This is the
policing?
question
And do
I
you
wanted.
support the Black Lives Matter
This is the question.
Oh, here we go.
call for?
He looks scared.
For community control of policing.
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm not totally opposed to defunding the police offices. Matter of fact, local police.
You say I'm not,
The only
Brian?
Not
defunding
totally
it, his budget calls
opposed.
for $400
You
million.
say I'm not totally
cut
opposed, or was that a word whisker? You
Not
can't
totally
know
opposed.
because he's a demented old circus
They
monkey.
need,
said
when
not.
they show
He
up
said
for a
not.
9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be
Angry
able to talk
Joe.
people down.
Yeah,
We had
like
to
one of
have
the examples,
community policing
Jacob
like we
Blake,
had
where they showed
before,
up and the guy
where
was
the
chasing a
officers
cop
get
with
to
a
know
knife.
the people
Can you imagine
in
if
the
a social
community.
worker who
That's
wanted
what
to
I'm
ask him about his
trying to
relationship with his
do.
mother would have handled it?
Let's just talk for a minute, okay? Let's talk.
What they're talking about, Chris. That's
Well,
not what
that-
they're talking.
that's
He's talking
exactly-
about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support.
look,
He has no law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
look.
Oh,
That is
who do you
absolutely
have?
true.
Name
That
one
is statistically
group that
verifiable.
supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go
Look,
ahead.
look.
Think. We have time.
We don't have
Name one law enforcement group that came out and
I think
supported
I'm going to take
Chris
back
Wallace,
the
Chris Wallace, please.
And I want to get to another subject, which is
thank
the
God.
issue of protest.
You see, Joe
in many
Biden just literally
cities
hung his head.
That have
He
turned
did.
violent.
He went-
In
he just went.
Oregon, especially, we had
Like a dad who was disappointed who just walked in on his teenager watching porn.
Which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful
Only it's
protests.
himself.
Gerald Morgan porn.
Turned into
No,
riots.
there is none.
Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever
Great
it takes,
question.
but you'd stop the days and months of violence.
You'd be better suited going
It's
into
important.
Oregon and saying, bring
I don't
out
hold
your
public office.
dead.
Right.
I am a former vice president. I've made it clear. I've made it clear in my public statements.
so the answer's no.
That the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it.
But
should
you've
be
never called
prosecuted.
for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You have never
Chris
called
Wallace is
for
doing
the
a good job
leaders
today.
in
Yeah, he's
Portland
got-
He's doing a pretty
and
good job.
in Oregon to call
Because
bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way.
Whoa.
Here-
They're not taking care of it. Look, over $2 billion in damages, 30 people dead, over 1,000 officer casualties, 14,000 arrests, and the only time they step up is because the Proud Boys want to drive by in a couple of trucks with some American flags and maybe a couple of paintball guns. I won't lie, that's just a good old-fashioned Saturday. The point is here, they have done nothing. Billions of dollars in damages.
Yeah.
You were talking about dozens of people dead. Well, this is if you are a black person in the United States right now, and you're living in, and let's be honest, there aren't many in Seattle, but let's talk about Chicago. Let's talk about New York, and you are seeing your neighborhood destroyed. If you're one of the 80+% of black Americans who support at least as much police presence as now, if not more, which by the way is reflected in every single poll, you need to see right now you have a former vice president who, by the way, said he didn't want to support desegregation because he didn't want his kids being raised in a racial jungle, according to Snopes, right now is saying, hey, let your shops be burnt down. Let your David Dorns be shot.
Right.
Let your young children, let your schools be burned down to the ground because we can't have Donald Trump step in and help. We can't have the National Guard. This will be fixed if the federal government stays out of it. It is just like the exact opposite. If you wanted to protect the most vulnerable among us with COVID, right? The exact opposite of what you would do is quarantine the sick. You would quarantine the healthy. You would quarantine the sick. You would quarantine old people.
Yeah.
You would quarantine sick people. This is the exact opposite in the same sense that he doesn't understand the role of the federal government. The role of the federal government is to step in when local government cannot keep its citizens, American citizens, safe from either external threats or internal threats. So he's willing to step into your state and tell you which kind of health care you have to purchase.
Right.
He's willing to step into your state and tell you which kind of a business you have to patron if you want to receive some kind of a tax break. But he is not willing to have the federal government step in under its legitimate purview into a state where American citizens are dying and the police are overrun to help you, minority American citizens. There you go. You hear, this guy has no idea as to what the actual parameters of government are. When there are no principles, you're seeing it fall apart tonight. He cannot provide specific answers, and when he does, they're the opposite of what you have the authority to do. And you want to say Donald Trump's an authoritarian? The guy on this stage, let me get this straight, and then we'll go back to the debates. I'm sorry. The guy on this stage we're supposed to believe is an authoritarian is the guy who, by Joe Biden's own accusations, lowered taxes, right? Supported freedom of speech.
Yeah, that's good.
Employed more Americans, encouraged businesses as opposed to actually just punishing or putting on tariffs. Encouraged Americans to businesses to employ more Americans. Encourages Americans to be able to exercise their Second Amendment rights, and is going to appoint a Supreme Court justice who will support those as well. And has stayed out of, I lost count because of this rap on my head.
It's tough.
And has actually stayed out of these states where American citizens are dying, and he would be well within his right to deploy the National Guard to some capacity, or the American military in all its power until they ask for it. That's the guy who's the authoritarian.
He's bad at it.
The guy who at every single turn has allowed you more freedom and more rights.
Sounds like a dictator.
Yeah, it might be murky on the definition there.
But by the way, I have one
The first thing dictators do is come in and lower that corporate tax rate and individual tax rate.
and have more freedoms guaranteed to all Americans. I have a quick question for Joe Biden. What exactly did President Trump do to get in the way? You're saying that these states could handle the problem if he would just get out of the way. What
Your
exactly
jacket disqualifies
did he
you from filling in
do?
for Chris Wallace, Gerald.
What, you win a golf tournament?
I'm just confused here. Like he didn't get in the way in the first place. He didn't go into a place
Tell you
unless he
what's
was
in the
asked.
way is that Helena Bonham Carter tie Biden is wearing. Let's go back to this
Space
asshole.
Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important, By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court judges, justices. That is a record.
I've never
the
seen
likes
this.
of
I know
which
it's ad
very
hominem.
few people.
Joe
and you know, one
Biden's
of the reasons I'll have
lips,
so
there's
many
no
judges,
contrast between the rest of his
because
face.
President Obama and
I think
his-
he's,
all the same shade.
he's sucking all the blood from available
It's like
places.
Yoko
to his
Ono's
brain.
ass horizontally on a face. There's no action. It's just a crack. It's just a crevice.
128
The same stuff
openings.
roughly.
Like if I were to go
comes out.
freehand mountain climbing, that's where I'd sort of leverage my knees.
Yeah.
That's a grab
Where I'd
spot
wedge
right
them.
there.
You left
Right in that.
us
Right
128
in the
openings. You can't be a good president. You can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should
don't look at
voters
his.
elect you president as opposed to President
Under
Trump?
this
You have 2
president-
minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker,
Really?
sicker,
How?
What?
poorer,
How?
more divided.
We've
and more
become
violent.
weaker with no major
When I
wars.
was
I think Donald Trump is the
vice
only president
president,
to not start
we
a new
inherited a
armed
recession.
conflict, as
Yeah, I
opposed
was
to you
asked
who are
fix it.
dropping
I
drone
did.
strikes
We
like a
left
new
in booming
mixtape.
economy, and he caused a recession.
Oh, really?
With regard to being
How did he
weaker.
cause it?
You
The fact is
claimed
that
credit
I
when he had the
began
best
heavy
economy ever.
made
You
it
said that
clear
was the
I'm not
result of
gonna take
Obama,
any
despite the
stuff.
fact that he
He's
never
fucking-
saw
he
those
still
unemployment
refuses to
rates
even
or
see
labor
the
force
people
participation
who
rates
the
in
bounty
all
on the
8
heads of
years.
American soldiers.
You guys tried to claim credit, and now you're saying he's to blame for the recession? Okay, let's keep this in mind when the economy rebounds. And by the way, it's rebounded faster than anticipated because they were preparing for the debate with worst case scenario 12% unemployment going to the election.
Exactly.
It's already below 9.
He hasn't brought that up.
He never keeps his word. Can you add back
No, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes, you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly,
Where was I?
we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to
Highest
$400 billion
average wage
more
increase
just since
in
COVID.
modern American
you and
history.
the home,
Yeah.
you got
You don't need to fight for
less.
15
You're in
anymore
more
because
trouble than
more
you were
Americans make
before.
significantly more than
In terms
15
of
than
being
ever in the
They're
United
going
States
to have
history.
to up that number.
When we were
I
in
guess.
office, there
New
was
slogans, new
15%
Fight for 28.
less violence in America
Why the number
than there is
changed?
today.
So,
He's
yes,
president
as
of the
good as
United
mine.
States.
He already did
It's
15.
on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being
Oh my God! This is a man who's running for office. Keep in mind, people out there who say, "Well, you know what? I'm not pro social justice warrior, but I'm not a Republican. I'm a classical liberal." This is a guy who is reading Slate and Salon headlines, the websites that, by the way, repeatedly support pedophiles. Salon.com. I'm a pedophile, but I'm not a monster. They actually denigrated us because we said, "If you're a pedophile, you're likely a monster." These are he's reading headlines from these websites.
That's it.
Joe Biden right now. There is no evidence that Donald Trump has ever called troops losers and suckers, and there are over 10 accounts, including people who were in those rooms, saying that's absolutely untrue. There are email verifications that you can see, screenshots right now that prove it was the main story for this when it started, it spurred it, was a weather event where he couldn't actually attend an event. It's Bolton. Bolton wrote a whole book. The
guy that
taking
hates
a
him.
steaming dump on Trump, and he even said like, I don't really have any integrity left, but I'm going to try and save a shred of it. That's not true.
I think he brought up Hunter.
He did.
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a
I know, but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million from the
we brought up Hunter.
Moscow.
He brought up Hunter. Down your beer, everybody, and I already got a pee.
Is totally
Why did he get
discredited.
it?
Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money. That report it was written for political reasons.
I'd like to talk about climate
Mitt
change.
Romney's a wienerhead, and you know it.
The forest fires in the West.
By the way, you
are
also
raging
said
now.
Mitt
They
Romney
have
was
burned
racist
millions
back
of
then,
acres.
dipshit.
They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science
it's disgusting.
knows. Over your 4 years, you
Go.
have pulled the
geez.
U.S. out of the
Get
Paris
outta here.
Climate Accord.
He's been doing
You have
squats.
rolled back a number of Obama
Look at Tone.
environmental
You know what? I'm going to
records.
chase that skirt out of here and go to the bathroom.
What do
You
you
guys hold on.
believe
Go.
about the science of climate change?
I'll stand
and
up that
what
fast.
will you do
Yo,
in
get
the
over
next
there.
4 years to confront it?
I want
geez.
crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses
Right,
aren't
there's the
put out of
balancing question.
commission.
Are you going to destroy
If you
businesses?
look at
Do this?
the
And by the
Paris
way,
Accord,
Gavin
it was a
Newsom was the guy who
disaster
said
from
this
our
is climate
standpoint.
change's fault, that we have
people
fires
are
in California,
actually
which we've
very
had
happy
since
about what's
California
going
was
on,
California.
Because our businesses are doing well.
California
As far as the fires are concerned,
Every
you need
year.
forest management in addition to everything else.
Yeah.
The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder. And leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the billion tree
That was
project.
a great answer.
And it's very
Look, I got to
exciting.
tell you, it's underserved how much Republicans support conservation of the
greenhouse gas
environment.
emissions
We
contribute
just don't
to
want
the
to,
global warming of
I
the
think a
planet.
lot
the
of things do,
economy
but I
at
think
its
to an
knees
extent,
to
yes.
do it.
I think to an extent,
Right? In
yes.
ways
but
that
I
aren't
also
necessarily
think
going to help
we
the
have to
economy.
do
Making the
better
claim that the
management of our
fires are because
forests.
of climate
Every
change
year,
is
I get
idiotic.
the call.
Because people that are out there
California's burning.
want
California's
to get
burning.
forest management
If that was clean,
under control.
If you had
Shut
forest
up,
management,
Bill. I don't care if
good
you're right.
forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor.
California
but I said, you know, at some
forest
point,
management.
you
They
can't
are the
every year
reason
have
California's
hundreds of
burning.
thousands of
That's what I was just
acres
saying.
of
You were like
land
doing a
just
hand in
burned
the
to
face.
ground.
I think
That's
is
burning
that
down because of a lack of
But
said it in
if you
one
believe
sentence.
in the science of climate change,
We're still right.
why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars?
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car
Can't
is
stop
much less
midstream.
expensive and it's a much safer car.
And we need
you're
replacement
talking about a
cars.
tiny difference.
You
and
missed
then what
Trump
would
owning
happen
Biden
because
on
of
the
cost of
environment in
car,
California
you would have
wildfires.
at least double
pretty
and
good.
triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
no, but you
ignored
would take
your
a lot of cars
rollback.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little
One of the drinking
bit
rules, don't
of
die
gasoline.
on the stream. Thanks.
And I'm okay with electric cars, too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil plant.
Subsidize solar and wind at the American taxpayers' dime, even though it doesn't work.
We're going to make sure that
all the while vilifying nuclear, probably our most affordable and really realistic
making sure that we can do that. We're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability of us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less.
Take everything
gas
that he
and
just
oil
mentioned.
because the heat will
It's
not
not
be
even
going
close
down.
to what
There's
Elon
so many
Musk can
things
do.
that we can do now
As far as
to create
charging
thousands
stations,
and
as far as
thousands of jobs.
infrastructure,
We
as far
can
as
get to
spearheading the
net
market,
zero
as far as
in terms of
innovation.
energy
What you need is a president who steps out of the way for more proof. Who's the leader in the electric car space right now?
It's got to be Tesla.
It would be something based with Tesla. They've moved their factory from California to Texas because California is a little petri dish of Biden's policies, and Texas is a little petri dish
I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening.
It's that simple.
It's
America
all
leads
falling
electric,
apart.
and America leads
Talk about
electric
someone
because
who
of the
has
policies of Donald Trump.
No relationship with foreign policy.
Elon Musk, I don't even know what he
the
is.
rainforest of Brazil are being
Is he South
torn
African?
down.
Is he
They're being
Swedish?
ripped down.
Thank you, sir.
More
I don't know whether to ask him about
carbon is
apartheid or have
absorbed
him
in
build
that
my furniture.
rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant
He just watched
economic
Ferngully.
consequences.
What about the argument that,
No, that was
President
Avatar.
Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, make sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem.
Probably emitting quite a bit of methane
This is a
tonight,
guy who
Joe.
says that you don't have to have
I don't know
mileage
whether
standards
it's
for
you or your
automobiles that exist
squeaky
now.
slippers.
This is the guy who says that. Well, the fact is, it's all true. And here's the
Talking
deal.
about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the
that is
dumbest,
not-
most
that
ridiculous.
is not-
Where airplanes are out of
Wait a minute,
business,
sir.
where two-car systems are out, where they
Not
want to
true.
take out the cows too.
Not
That's not
true.
true either, right?
Not
this is
true.
a 100 trillion.
Look,
That's more money than
that
our
is-
country could make in
that is
100
simply
years if we're
not
going
the case.
All right, let me
destroy our
because I
country.
actually wait a minute, sir.
I've never
I
seen
actually
any presidential
have
candidate give
studied
fewer
your plan,
specifics, right,
and it
than
includes
Joe Biden.
upgrading
No.
4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of.
Well, that debate
It's going
with
to
Hillary
make
Clinton,
the economy much
Donald
safer.
Trump was
Look
kind
how
of
much we're
lurching
paying
behind her.
now to deal
This
with
entire
the
evening has been one
hurricanes,
giant
deal with-
lurch.
By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said, maybe we should
surprised he
drop
didn't
a
just say,
nuclear
"You're
bomb on
right."
Navy.
I never said that
That's
at all.
what he did say.
You made it up.
And we are going to be in a position where we can.
I don't know if this will play well
hard,
with the rest of the country, but
good jobs.
I'm enjoying it.
by making sure the environment is clean.
By the way, bring
and
up
we
your drinking
all
game
are in
rules
better
again so people
shape.
can see
We
it.
spend billions of dollars now. Billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble.
rising
Look what's
seas.
happened just in the Midwest with these
there we go.
storms that come through and wipe out
Wait, hold on a second.
entire
Do you mean the
sections
Midwest where we
and
have
counties
record
in
crop
Iowa?
yields,
They
the most
didn't happen
temperate climates we've
before,
ever had,
because of
and the
global
highest
warming. We
Great
make
Lake
up
levels in
50%
century?
of the world's
Is that what you mean?
problem.
Those are good things.
Which, by the way, in
fact,
2017 you said would be gone.
the rest
Oh,
of
yeah.
You said that they would be
We've gotta
gone by the year
get
2025.
That's what we
Yeah,
have to get
you said that you would have to have
back
actually 20 years of heavy rainfall for the Great Lakes just to return to normal levels, and instead we have record high Great Lake
Why
levels.
didn't he do it?
That was your administration.
They just crammed the 20 years into two.
That's what he's
by the way,
asking
and
right
also,
here.
cherries are the asshole of the fruit world. They're very, very difficult to yield, and we're dumping record cherries in Michigan
He made a couple of statements.
because of our record
the Green
crop
New
yield.
Deal
To
is
fix the
$100
prices,
trillion.
Thank you, Governor Whitmer. October 2nd will be in
That's
Lansing State
green.
Capitol.
Well, you
New
want to
deal
rebuild every
is not
building.
my plan.
I want to rebuild every
If he knew anything about if he knew
He
anything
made a
about
statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
What
not
he
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the
Vice-
military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I did not.
Oh, there we go.
He said stupid bastards.
Stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that.
Play
to the
it.
military.
Play it.
The difference is his accusation
Vice
is
President,
actually true.
Answered
It's on tape.
his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all of Grant.
I can't remember. I can't
I'm in
remember.
trouble myself, but,
A Freudian slip was
and
never
about
so
the economy
slippery.
And about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the
Except for when
Green
he
New
was
Deal
oil
and the
wrestling
idea
his
of
mom.
what your
The
environmental
Green New
changes
Deal-
will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we
Oh my
move
God.
forward.
He is doubling down and supporting the Green New
Oh,
Deal.
man, he's
For
all
those who
over
haven't
this.
seen
The great polluting plant.
watch the video where I read the entire Green New Deal from pillar to post. It's 5 pages.
Oh, well, that's a big
It's
statement.
5 pages, and it gives the government control over everything. It includes the words social justice in there. And by the way, and social justice. Wait, what does that mean? Oh, we only had 5 pages to write this. The fact that a presidential, you cannot be a moderate liberal. You cannot be someone who says, I'm a classic classical liberal and vote for a man who supports the Green New Deal. That reads like a Slate article, really the shortened version, because it's only 5 pages.
This will be a fair election. And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election in this final
Well, how
segment?
about you call out
Mr.
that
Vice
guy in
President, you go
Texas,
first.
Joe Biden, who was one of the 137 charges brought for massive voter fraud. One of them worked for the Biden campaign.
And what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security director, and as well as the FBI director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said
Project Veritas. Except for Georgia, New Jersey, Michigan, New York, California, Pennsylvania, and Texas, all of which have been verified by a court of law, a judge's order, or an unbiased state governing election committee. We did a whole segment on it. I don't want to interrupt them, but
make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote.
So you'll accept the results,
vote
Joe?
early in your state,
No matter
vote
what they are?
early.
Well, if he does,
you're
Twitter
able to
won't on
vote
his
in
behalf.
person, vote in person, vote whatever way is the
Vote
best
often.
way for you, because you will. He cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this
And vote
election.
for your dead
and in terms
Mima.
of whether or not, when the votes are
She would've
counted and
voted
they're
for
all
me,
counted,
you know.
that will
Hey,
be
and don't
accepted.
forget, after this,
If
we're going to be
I
taking
win,
some questions.
that will
I got to
be
tell you, the
accepted.
biggest
If I
questions
lose,
I
it'll
have,
be
it's not
accepted.
necessarily
But by
who
the
won
way,
this debate,
if in fact
but
he says he's
did you
not
hear
sure
a
what he's
single
going to
plank
accept, well, let me tell
on
you something,
any
it doesn't
kind of
matter.
platform on any
Anything.
issue
If we
from
get
Joe
votes,
Biden other than "I hate this guy over here"?
It was all
I heard you
headlines.
say a single plank?
Yeah, a plank on a platform that you're talking about.
okay,
Yeah.
Oh, plank on the platform.
Just
Okay.
make sure you understand you
Come
have
on.
it
That's a
in
good
your
point.
control
The
to
answer
determine
is none.
what this country is going to look like
That
the
from Green
next
New
4
Deal.
years. Is it going to change, or you
Then he made you
4 more
walk it.
years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it, too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country.
Yeah.
There's fraud.
Yep.
They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that.
I forgot.
They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that. All run by Democrats.
2 minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
You're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud.
And there's fraud,
but in 2018,
and also
the
a
last
system that is
midterm
incompetent
election,
and ill-equipped to deal with
31
it.
people
One,
voted
we already have
mail-in
verifiable
voting.
evidence to the tune
That was
of tens of thousands
more than a
fraud,
quarter of
and
all
one
the
to the tune
voters
of
that year
millions.
cast their ballots by mail.
Let's be clear. 42 million unsolicited ballots will be sent out to Americans that cannot be verified, that cannot be counted in time for election. That has never happened. Two issues, fraud and incompetence. Both. And I just realized I put up three.
I don't think I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them. We don't like them. We don't like them.
But
they throw them out left.
There are millions of ballots going out.
If you do, you go and vote.
We don't like them. We don't like them.
Ballot, no, that's okay. Or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people.
You go and vote. You go and vote
like they used to in the old millions of people.
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well.
Than video.
This is not going to end well.
5 states have had mail-in ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home.
It's true.
What we're saying is
that's the problem. Over years,
even if you don't live there.
Right. So what you're saying is, in a pandemic, we can just go ahead. We can barely get essential services done, but we can create an entirely new system in states that have never done it, and there won't be a problem in one of the most important elections in our history.
Yeah. Speaking of home, it's about time for you to get back to it, Joe. The home.
Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other.
So let's go through fraud. Michigan fraud, 868 ballots. Pennsylvania, we just had recently 9 ballots. 134 felony charges brought in Texas. In Georgia, over 1,000 residents voted twice. In New Jersey, a judge even ruled and ordered a new election because a sitting city councilman engaged in election fraud by over 800 votes that couldn't be counted. In California, more than 100,000 ballots rejected, 27,000 of them because signatures were not included or did not match, meaning fraudulent. New York, 100,000 Brooklyn voters received return envelopes with the wrong return address. In Virginia, 1,000 some voters who voted twice. That's not including any of the incompetence, which is to the tune of millions. That's just the active, outright fraud, by the way, in almost all scenarios on behalf of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, 3.9 million people requested ballots in 08, did not receive them. 3.9 million.
You know it can't.
MIT study.
All right, so now
that's it's a big number.
Final question is,
Multiply it by 2
in 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks,
it could be months,
until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They were called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election,
is that a Rocky reference?
100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what,
does that
from
mean,
a common sense,
does that mean you're going to tell your people to take to the street?
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
you think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge
noticed that Joe
not to
Biden's
declare
becoming
victory
increasingly
until the
incompetent as the
election
next
is
governor?
independently certified?
It's called a lack of stamina, Stephen.
Count
It's
the
called
ballots, as you pointed
the
out.
dopamine
Some of these ballots in
reuptake
some
inhibitors
states can't even be open.
That's why you needed
until
those breaks.
Election day. And if there's thousands of ballots, going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect.
Huh?
And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process.
Because they've had a system in
It's
place
honest.
for
No one
decades
has
because they're all
established
fighting battles
that there is
overseas.
Fraud related to mail-in ballots. That somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established.
Take
a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
You had an opportunity.
Look, this is a perfect moment for everyone who's going to be, for all our Blaze Mug Club members who are going to be here afterwards. This is the question I'm most curious to have you talk about in the chat that we can get to when we get to that live chat, is which is the question that each candidate answered worse, that you have having heard the answers, heard the analysis, and I want you to say not just about Trump, but also Biden as well. Do both, because there are more debates to come. I'm curious to hear what we see in the chat.
Democrats. I'll be president for Democrats
I'd like to
and
answer
Republicans.
D with Biden.
And this
all of the
guy,
above.
I want to say honest ballot count.
That is a valid
Will you
answer.
say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate.
Honest ballot count.
We're
And
going to
I think
leave
he
it
does
there.
too.
To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump.
He extended an
Vice
olive
President
branch to
Biden
Joe
has been an
Biden. He's like,
interesting
I
hour
hate
and a half.
olives.
I want to thank you both.
Get that
for
olive branch out of
They
my face.
overpower the
In the first
pizza,
three debates that
or
you
it's
agreed to
all you
engage
can
in, we want to
taste.
thank
I like
Get that olive
breadsticks.
branch out of my face.
Stop ruining comedy, Gerald.
I do what I can.
Event. The next
Love you,
debate,
Gerald.
sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The two vice presidential nominees, Vice
If you
President
want to
Mike
see the
Pence and Senator
actual
Kamala Harris,
Democratic presidential
will debate
debate,
at 9 p.m. Eastern
it's a
that night.
weird,
We hope you watch.
it's a weird system where they have the
Thank you.
Democratic presidential candidate debate the Republican vice presidential candidate.
I'm not sure how people.
It's going to be Harris versus Pence.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you want to see the real DNC president, the currently nominated president, you watch the VP debates. It's a little bit confusing with the rule book. Then again, so is mail-in voting. So
Stephen, I'm curious, like what your hot take right after having seen, gone through this debate, seen that first 90 minutes.
I will say
takes.
this: you're a fantastic lawyer. You have a lot of good qualities, but if you use the phrase "hot take" again, you will be replaced with a Jew with a lot of vowels in his last name.
Look, fine.
I will say
It's
this.
not hot.
I don't know how well this will play with the American people because Donald Trump was being a little bit what people might expect, being a little bombastic, interrupting. But it is remarkable to me that Joe Biden has not answered in any specifics. But that's the luxury of not having any accountability as a DNC candidate. The media won't call him on not answering with specifics. The media wants to make this a popularity contest. And so you will see them say Donald Trump had no sense of decorum, but they won't really call Joe Biden to the mat for being as non-specific as possible outside of, crazily enough, the Green New Deal. That's kind of the one thing that tells you who's pulling the strings in the Democratic Party. It's the one sort of policy that no one would fault you for running away from.
I mean, it's the thing we talked about earlier. He's got to move somewhere to the middle to find these folks who want to do a reasonable plan. And yet here he's talking about a 5-page wishing well of ideas that no one can afford, that would destroy the American economy. And yet, of all the things that he chose to memorize, it was that?
Well, it's all
I
social
get it.
justice
It was simple.
headlines. That's every single one of his points was a social justice headline.
I think someone told Joe Biden that there's no enthusiasm from his base, and so he needs to appeal to the far left. Because this is unprecedented I said at the beginning, and I stand corrected, that Democrats have had to run to the center in national debates. This is contrast this with Hillary Clinton. Contrast this with John Kerry. Contrast this with Al Gore. When they were in a general election, they said, no, that's just fear-mongering. Of course I don't want to take your guns away. Of course I want the average American to pay less in taxes. Of course I believe that businesses... But in this case, we had a candidate who basically read headlines, Joe Biden, from Slate, from Salon, from Huffington Post, and outright defended, doubled down on the Green New Deal, which is as far left... Am I out of line in saying that the Green New Deal is as far left of a policy proposal as has ever been presented in the United States?
By a major candidate.
No question,
Other than the Weather Underground. I mean,
Well,
it's insane to me that a major party candidate would come out and say they're so in favor of it when knowing that folks on both sides of the aisle know that the Green New Deal is unrealistic. It hurts working Americans. It hurts every single person top to bottom. Nothing is more non-discriminatory in the way that it hurts the American economy than the Green New Deal.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And ironically, it hurts black Americans more.
Yeah.
Because again, these people don't understand when he says, look, we're going to create more charging stations. Think about this for a second. Joe Biden was saying that if you elect me, you'll have more electric car charging stations. Whereas the leading voice in all of electric vehicles, Elon Musk, moved his factory from California to Texas because they wouldn't allow him to create cars or charging stations and work. It's one of there really is a diametric opposition between what Joe Biden thinks and reality. And every single solution proposed by Joe Biden involves, hey, I'll take care of you. I'll do this. I'll create more charging stations. I'll make sure that the government ensures safety and security and healthcare and guarantees that you have access to health. Whereas Donald Trump is saying, you know what? I'm going to make sure that you have choices. I'm going to make sure that your bosses have choices. I'm going to put more money back in your pocket. I'm going to make sure that Elon Musk has more money in his company and the freedom to not be shut down because of an exaggerated cough. And people will say, hold on a second, I don't want this to be fact-checked on YouTube. For people under the age of 50, it is a death rate with COVID very comparable to the flu, certainly more so than the initially projected mortality rate of 1 to 4 to 7%. 2 million Americans dead outside of course, states like New York and Michigan, where that is the death rate because they sent young sick patients into senior living facilities.
Well, so I got to say, you guys are forgetting. What you're forgetting is that if you're in poverty in America right now, the number one concern you have is where your next charging station is going to be put in. I think that, that's how out of touch we are, right?
Yeah.
When you have no car to charge in the first place, it's nice to see a station for the day you do get one.
Well, when your Walgreens has been burned down, what are you going to do with your Model S?
Well, I gotta say that I gotta issue a correction on something I said earlier, because earlier before the debate, Gerald said that he thought that it would be better for the president to go in a certain way and kind of let Joe Biden hang himself on his own speech. And I was disappointed that the president, I didn't think that the president did worse than I expected, but I was hopeful that he would allow Joe to get out there and just hang himself with his own words. And anytime Joe got a head of steam going, it was like, wow, this guy has no idea what he's talking about.
He's got
but
no
I
marbles
will
up there.
say, I was shocked that the more names called in this entire debate was by Joe. Joe was the one
This
who
clown
really
over here, I'm
sunk.
sorry, not clown. He wasn't even clever enough to come up with another name. Like, I'm sorry, esteemed colleague. He was like, this clown over here, I'm sorry,
notes, line,
something else.
I mean, it really
keep looking down at
it
notes.
destroys the narrative
exactly.
that Donald Trump is the only president who's at times acts non-presidential, and we'll all agree at times he does act unlike other presidents. But then if you're going to go ahead and say, "Well, Biden, he's amazing. He always keeps his cool. He never calls names at anyone." We've seen it on the campaign trail, and we saw it on a debate. This was the one moment that Biden had to make sure he stayed on his game, and he couldn't do it. And you were right, Stephen. Along the way, it kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
He needed those
I want to
breaks.
go to our closing thoughts here for people who are Mug Club members. Thank God the stream was not shut down tonight. Final word for you guys. October 2nd, this Friday, in Lansing, Michigan, at the state capitol. I will be there with some exclusive information and a presentation there for the many of you who are showing up regarding Governor Whitmer and the death toll of seniors and how you've been misled. So this is something, again, because we've been told, or we've been portrayed as Republicans, as conservatives, that we don't care about the most vulnerable. Actually, Governor Whitmer, it's these states, Governor Cuomo, they don't care about the most vulnerable among you. They have proactively enacted policies that have resulted in thousands of deaths, verifiably, observably, and we'll go through those numbers and also have some calls to action for everyone there right now who's seen enough of this, who's seen enough absurd nursing home policies. Michigan, October 2nd in Lansing. Do we have the winner of the costume contest?
We do have the costume contest winner. It looks like it is a gentleman named Vake.
And there he is.
Wow.
Looks like strong bad.
That is absolute insanity.
With a tiny mug.
It's the stuff that nightmares are made of.
I love it.
It looks like Wishmaster.
Stephen, can I say something about Michigan? I really got to say something about why people need to tune in, why they need to have their friends tune in, even if they're center or center left, is because this is the topic that you've been talking about. You're a Michigan native. You've known about these numbers. You're bringing this presentation together. Every time anyone tries to bring up the Michigan numbers about the senior deaths and how they're being covered up and the data's not being released, we get into a new news cycle and it's dissipated.
Yeah.
If you're going to bring it all together on Friday, you've been sending requests, and you really care about what's going to happen. This is something that if you care about coronavirus numbers, regardless of the side you're on, you need to pay attention to what's happening on Friday.
And not only that, I have relatives who work as nurses in Michigan, and I have a 97-year-old grandmother in Michigan.
Right.
So I have skin in the game with family members who are direct victims of the policies that you would see from Governor Whitmer. And of course, she's tried to maintain the optics that, hey, look, we flattened the hospital curve. Well, you know how they did that? By stuffing young, sick COVID patients into nursing homes, because who would suspect the nursing home deaths? Because 25% of any deaths in any given week come from nursing homes. There is a reason that Texas, Florida have a third the death rate of states like New York. And then if you compare population size, there's a reason that Indiana, that these other states neighboring Michigan, that states with the same population density, South Carolina, Tennessee, are not even close to states like Michigan. Governor Whitmer has one leg to stand on as it relates to her status, as it relates to re-election, as it relates to this trust that the public has given to her, and that is she kept your seniors safe. She kept Michiganders safe. I will make a definitive case as to why that is the opposite of the truth. Governor Whitmer's policies, she's been saying she wants to launch an investigation into Donald Trump for not doing enough as it relates to COVID. Well, you know what? First off, Governor Whitmer, you first, and you've done too much. It's pretty tough to measure a non-action, right? It's pretty tough to quantify that. It's not tough to say, oh, wait a second. You vetoed a bill from Republicans that said, hey, hold on a second, let's just not send young sick patients into nursing homes. Let's just not send people to nursing homes when there's no quarantining system in effect. Let's make sure that if people are being quarantined before going into nursing homes, that they're in a separate building. You vetoed that, and you put pressure on nursing homes, on assisted living homes, on adult foster care facilities, and homes for the aged to take young, sick COVID patients. That's what's crazy about Michigan.
It's insane.
It's not just old, sick patients who left the nursing home, went to the hospital, and there was policy like you saw in New York where they said you have to take these patients back. In Michigan, they said, by the way, you're going to take 21-year-old paranoid schizophrenics into your nursing homes too, and then we're going to cover up and lie about the deaths. So it's a cause that's near and dear to my heart. It'll be entertaining, and it'll poke a finger in the chest. Now, by the way, it won't poke a finger in the chest of Governor. That would be wrong. That would be Joe Biden level inappropriate.
Yeah.
It'll be figured like I'll be tapping her on the shoulder, avoiding any mammular tissue. Just to be clear, but. I think she's going to have a rough time. So that's Friday, October 2nd in Michigan. We are going to go now to liveofcutter.com/mug club for exclusive, unfiltered final takes. Not hot takes on these debates and taking your chat. Let's go, YouTube. We love you. Piss off.